Hello friends and welcome to episode 217 of the Noclip podcast. It's a Crewcast. We got the whole crew here. It's all happening. It's hot off the presses. News breaking last week. Monolith closing down, bombing us out, making us sad, feeling bad. Right before we went live though, a trailer was announced. Frank Howley, have you seen it? I don't know if you've seen it yet. On TikTok, Jesse just posted it in the staff chat. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 and 4.
I have not seen the trailer. I'm bummed the game's not out now. I thought it was going to be a shadow drop. Instead, it comes out July 11th. Come on.
July 11th. Hot. Hey, that's still the summer. Yeah. It's right in the middle of it. Can you imagine? You're going to be listening to Del the Funky Homo Sapien as you jump around that hangar. There's always a
no
hangar.
chance to get the same licenses. There's no way.
We gotta wash your ass if you must. You gotta wash your hair.
Is Bam Margera in it?
Funky. Bam Margera's Bam's gotta be in it. Bam's gotta, he's gotta pay for something. Hopefully not any substances. Hopefully, I don't know, the mortgage on Castle Bam. I think he's been locked out of Castle Bam recently. That whole thing is like hard to track.
Is Castle Bam his house, or is that some? I don't know the lore. I need a lore master.
Did you ever watch Viva La Bam?
I did a little bit. I was more of like a pre-Viva La Bam guy.
Do you remember just that crazy fucking house he lived in?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was he just calls that, I think, Castle Bam. Or maybe
Castle
we
of
do.
Bam is also where Emerald Lagasse lives, by the way. You're welcome.
Nice.
Thank you.
I'm laughing, pretending I understood that reference because it's.
Oh, you don't know
cool.
Emerald Lagasse, the classic TV cook? Oh, he would spice stuff up. He'd go bam, bam.
Oh, that guy.
He'd throw
Castle Bam.
ingredients
Yeah,
in.
Bam. Okay. I think I only know him because like some cartoons referenced that. Yeah. So I only know
Futurama,
him.
I think, has a joke about that.
That's it. Exactly.
Yeah.
You nailed it. That is exactly it. I totally forgot. Okay. Nice work. Yeah. Great. I just thought that was a guy in Futurama.
That's the best part of experiencing old culture is you realize everything you love is just referencing things. Nothing's original.
I feel like that was me growing up seeing anything on Looney Tunes and not having a connection to the like 1925 reference they're doing. So it's just like, oh yeah, that Mozart piece that's from that's written by Looney Tunes.
Like, just, hello my baby, hello my honey. You're like, yeah man, that's just the Looney Tunes.
That's a Looney
frog.
Tune.
Yeah.
And now I'm trying to think like what other Futurama characters are references I don't get. Maybe that guy with the lawyer guy, the
guy with terminal bonitis.
Yeah, the bonitis guy. Yeah, I wonder if he's like from Wall Street or something. Or
there's probably some old movie. Oh god, I can think of it, but I can't think of the name. But yeah, there's something for sure.
Can we be honest about something here?
Sure.
This is a safe space, right? We're all friends here.
Sometimes,
right?
Of course. As long as I don't name any games called He Is Coming, then we're good.
Oh, that's. Have you seen my list?
Oh no.
Because I'm about.
Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it.
I'm so close.
This is mostly a safe space, like 95%. Go ahead.
So you're in the unfortunate position of having to edit this later, so you get to hear all of this trauma.
Don't remind me
twice. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3. That's a great video game. What a classic. Great levels, great music. I have many memories playing that game. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 4. How do we feel about Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 4? I can barely remember anything about it.
I need a little refresher too.
It's still a Tony Hawk game, so it's still in the top like 0.5% of games of all time. But it's a sharp decline from 3 and 4. But it's still great. It's weird that they're bundling them together. Because Tony Hawk 3, if it was on its own, it's like perfect. That's great. 4 is like, it seems like it's like 10 times the amount of work to remaster that game because there's like 6,000 goals. There's so much stuff in that game that it's like, I don't know. It seems like I don't know the scale of the project, but it seems like they're doing so much of the work to remaster. I don't know. There's so much stuff in 4.
So is it still the same in my head, I'm like, it wasn't until Thug that they started doing the open world shenanigans. 4 was still like, yo, you got 2 minutes, basically.
No, 4 was you're in the college and Tony Hawk's like, hi, welcome to college. Learn how to kickflip. Like it's that's where it starts, and you learn how to sketch the car and all that stuff. And
oh yeah, I do remember that.
Yeah, 4 was pretty fun. It had the Alcatraz level too. It had these sort of like, not open worlds, but like a sort of the levels felt like miniature open worlds, I would say.
They were like much bigger than your sort of your tight. You know what it's going to be? I kind of don't want to even look up videos of it because I bet I remember loads about it, but I definitely completed it back in the day, but I just don't remember much. I'm watching a video now and I'm like, oh yeah, I do remember this shit. Look at this shit. Maybe they get a chance to fix it. Is this the one that had the San Francisco, that had EB on it? Like had all the San Francisco Pier shit on it?
Yep. Did
the first one as well?
The first one, you weren't in the pier, you were in like some giant plaza. They did have the hill and stuff like that, but yeah, 4 was the pier.
Okay. All right, well that's cool. That means they can kind of like bring back a classic and maybe fix one up a little bit. Will they add the sketching cars to 3 then? Were there any cars? I'm trying to think, were there any levels with cars?
Los Angeles has cars going in.
Okay.
Yeah. Man. Again, you can ask any question about Tony Hawk.
I was about to say, yeah. What's your favorite song in what name some good songs in Tony Hawk's 4?
Okay, Tony Hawk 4. It's weird they left I think an Offspring song, but it's not one of their like hits. It's like I think it's Blackball. Tony Hawk 4 has all the Iron Maiden stuff in it. Tony Hawk 4 has, that was my first exposure to AC/DC was Tony Hawk 4.
Beautiful.
That's awesome.
Like I had never heard AC/DC before. Then like I think the loading screen was like, oi, I've been riding through the sunset. Oh, whatever.
That's really good.
4 also has Jango Fett or Boba Fett. I forget which one.
Did it also? Yeah, does it have? Was it that or was it what's his face with the fucking twin lightsabers? What's his name?
Darth
again?
Maul was in number 3.
Oh, he was in 3. Okay, yeah. What what's the cop name again? I feel bad. I can't remember.
Officer Dick.
Shit. Officer Dick. Is he in this or the Skeleton Man or?
Officer Dick was in number 3 as an unlockable. I don't know if he's in number 4.
Spider-Man.
No, yeah, Spider-Man was number 2. Yeah.
Who else we got? Alien guy.
Alien guy would have been number 1 because that was where you go through the Area 51 you unlock. 5. No, Underground is where they got super weird. Underground is where Shrek is in.
Shrek.
Let me double check, but I think Shrek is in one of the Tony Hawk games.
Was it 3 that had the Neversoft eyeball?
Yeah,
You
he's in the loading stream.
Yeah,
then,
no. Yeah, but he's a playable character, right?
Yeah, number 3, and then
Yeah,
Shrek is in Underground 2.
Wow.
He's so underground.
Yeah.
He's such a thug. He's deep with Bam Margera and Brandon DiCamalio and all those guys.
I like that scene where Shrek beats up Eric Sparrow, where Eric Sparrow is like, I'm going to skate better than you ever could. And then Shrek's like, shut the fuck up. And just comes out and beats him.
Donkey kicks him in the head.
Yeah.
He's got his back. Good stuff. Well, hey, look, happy Tony Hawk's Day to all of you who serve. And does this pave the way then for them remastering? It would be Thug 1 next, right?
Hopefully. Oh, yeah. Or if they just make their own game. But
yeah.
Tony
Hawk Underground 3. Project 9. Tony Hawk Ride 2. There's so many.
They sell the skateboard again? Yes, we're so back.
Great. We used to be angry at remasters, but games have gotten so bad
that we're willing to play old ones that look slightly different.
Or we've gotten so old. I don't know what it is. It's games haven't gone bad. We got loads of great games to talk about this week. Some new, some next festy. We got some Monster Hunter in here. We got some oldies too. I played a game that probably would have been on my Game of the Year list now, but I didn't get around to it. So I'm excited to chat about that. But first of all, massive thanks to all of our incredible patrons over at patreon.com/noclip, including the best skaters I know, our Battle Pass holders, Anthony Thomas, Nico Possateri, It's a me Ferrario, the Italian twins, as we call them. If you don't like being called the Italian twins, please DM me. Penelope Hayes, if you will. Senator Armstrong, Eamon Slattery, Harry Flanagan, Juice, Arno, Richard Matherson, Matt Pearson, James Brown, Mark Rojas, Tucker Morgan, David McGarry, Sven Hooster, Pez, You Ain't Nate. You even did the side thing there, Jesse, I saw. You even put
I
your
was
head
just
to the
sniffling,
side.
but let's
were
say
you?
I
It was
did it on
just I thought
purpose.
you were like doing a sympathy avoid the plosive on Pez. You Nate, Tim Robinson, Forrest Pruitt, Jonathan Kremen, Eric Hamilton Schneider, Christophe Fetouhi, Cameron Ladd.
Oh, no, you can't do that. You gotta
Christophe
fix the order. You threw me off.
He has wedged himself, the French bastard. I don't know if this person is French. The only other person I know called Christophe is French. Fetouhi also sounds, it could be Italian. I don't know. Christophe, let me know. Let me know what's going on there and why you like to be between Eric and Cameron. I mean, who wouldn't be? Who wouldn't want it? Zachary Snader, Alex Goucher, George Sakotis, Jacob Godserve, and Theogen, Tohir Tiliev, and Ryson. Thank you all so much, our incredible Battle Pass holders and everyone who's supporting us on Patreon. A lot of folks over on the early access tier enjoying our Dwarf Fortress, the first episode of our Dwarf Fortress documentary, which went up on early access just today, on Tuesday, as we record this. So yeah, it's been cool seeing some of the feedback come in on that. Okay, let's talk about some video games. No big news this week. I did a little check around. Nothing particularly interesting. I think that Monolith thing that dropped last week was kind of the biggest one of the week as it is. Aside from geopolitics, Jesse, do I have to pay you more now? Is that what's going on?
Yes.
Are you going to tariff me or?
Both ways. There's retaliatory or whatever tariffs. We're going to get you back. So you 25% more from you, and then I also charge you 25% more.
Okay.
Not your fault though.
So you'll have to do more. You have to edit 25% more podcasts.
That's not what I said.
What we're saying is that we have to.
No. You get the same. If anything, you get less.
I get less, but then I pay you. Okay. That sounds fair.
Yeah.
Do you know any? Do you have any?
I don't know any American
produce podcasts.
No,
we're moving the podcast plant to Michigan.
Yes, we are. We're going to put a sticker on the podcast that says "Made in America," so it costs more.
Yeah.
Let's talk about some games. Frank, hey, look, man, you played the hotness, so let's just jump straight into it. What's going on in the wonderful world of hunting monsters?
Yeah, so Monster Hunter Wilds is finally out after I think they first announced it way back in 2023. Summer Games Fest last year, there was a private demo and stuff, and now it's out, and it's on PS5, Xbox, PC. Although the PC performance, I've had a lot of friends have issues. You got to set your settings down. It seems like it's kind of rough.
Mixed reviews at the moment on Steam.
Yeah, and I think that's all PC wise. Because in terms of the game, it's it's awesome. I'm playing on PS5, so although even on PS5, I'm playing on performance mode, so the frame rate's high, but every now and then I'll notice it'll look blurry a little bit sometimes. But I played the last one on Switch, so this is already such a huge improvement already.
Potato mode.
Yeah, so and even I played Monster Hunter World on my PC, and that ran really poorly, and I didn't have the best PC at the time, but these games have always been demanding on PC. So I'm playing it on PS5 and enjoying it, but it's it almost feels like the conversation around World of Warcraft or with hardcore things where it's the game doesn't start until you finish the story mode, and then it's all right, now you're ready, now the real fight begins. So I've kind of been rushing through the story mode just so I can get to where all my friends. I had one friend who stayed up to 40 hours. And to Monster Hunter people.
40 hours nonstop.
Yeah,
oh my God.
Wow. Monster Hunter players are so extreme. I think my friend was Hunter rank 67 already, and it's Monster. Again, once you're in, it's great. In terms of the big feature with this one is it's one giant open world map. And there's different areas, but the older Monster Hunter games, I think even before World was a map would be broken up into 20 little sections. So you'd start chasing a monster, it'd go run away, you'd have to chase, and there'd be a loading screen. Here it's just one giant map, even from where the quest hub is. So your little town or village, you craft your weapons, you eat, you go to your tent, and then you can start your quest, fight the monster. In the middle of a fight, or when the monster scurries away before the next phase, you can go back to the base and eat again or restock.
That's cool. That seems like they've been trying to get there for a while.
Yeah, but it's so
maybe why it's not running so well.
Yeah, probably. But it's funny because it's messing me up because I keep forgetting to eat and restock my potions and stuff like that, because it's just you'll finish a quest, kill the boss, and then the NPC will be all right, let's go fight the next monster. I'll hit X, skip the cutscene, and then you're in a giant boss fight, and I keep forgetting because the usual loop, or at least my favorite, was Monster Hunter Rise, the last one in 2021 that was put out for Switch first. Was they really? I don't know, simplifies or ease the process. Like I played World, and that was like I had played with friends, but like it didn't click 100%.
Bit too much.
Yeah, it's these Monster Hunter games. There's so much. One, you have to like pick a weapon. This one has I think 17 weapons.
Oh wow.
So it's like and you know and also like it's always such a cliche to compare it to like Dark Souls, but it's like. You know, this is a game where like movement and combat really matters, and like you have to. I don't know. You get into a flow state with these, but it's like it's not just hack and slash. You really have to like time your stuff. There's like a rhythm to the combat, and you have to constantly dodge, and it's very very fun once you get into the groove with it. But it's like then there's also potions, and if you're fighting like a fire boss, you have to make sure you're drinking your cold drink to
Gatorade.
Yeah, and then if you're fighting an ice boss, you got to drink your hot drink. So like there's all these stats and things you have to worry about. Resist there's so many elements and layers and But once you know these games, it's like it's so fun. But funny enough, with this game, the story mode, the initial like few hours is so tutorialized. It like keeps you on a path. Like you're in this giant map, you see like mines or minerals or things you want to explore or loot, and it'll do the thing that like. You'll start walking, and then your character will turn around, and you'll have to walk back to the quest person. But after like that's maybe the first 2 or 3 hours of stuff. Then even the story mode stuff, I feel like it's a little bit less hands off, and the fights get bigger and bigger and bigger. And then with all the Monster Hunter games, once you're in a boss fight, you can shoot your SOS flare. And what they do this time that's awesome is before it populates the game with like real world players, it'll just fill it with 3 AI characters. And I think always
That's cool.
It's like there's a long range person, a close range, and DPS kind of. And that's fun because like it takes the pressure off of you. So it's like, okay, you can I don't know, and that's usually the flow. And then you'll start getting populated with random characters.
Do they replace the bots?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
And so like you'll have it, and then all of a sudden it'll be like, whatever, J-Stu has accepted your request, now joining. So one AI person will disappear, and then like within a minute, the real person will just drop in and start fighting. And so that's like pretty fast and fluid. And yeah, I think crossplay is on by default. I haven't noticed like internet lag issues, even though like, man, it hit such an insane peak amount of players already. Like it's doing very well, and across all the consoles.
Mixed reviews on Steam, but there are 67,000 of them. So like, it's been out a week or so it's pretty remarkable.
Yeah, it's really cool. I'm trying to think of the other funny thing is you can cook in the middle of a boss fight, so you have like a portable barbecue. So you can be fighting a monster, but if it's distracted, and if you forget to eat like I do, you can start doing it, and it does the extravagant cutscene where it's like steaks are on the grill, you're cooking, you're fine, but then
How good's the food look?
Incredible. But you can still be hit out of it. So there's already been like clips on Twitter of like people cooking, and then a giant like monster will breathe fire and kill, But the game is always like the tone of the game is very silly. There's different biomes. First you're in like a desert, then there's an ice area. I just got to a much more colorful jungle, very pretty and detailed, even though it's a little blurry because I'm on, So it's great. And again, I will keep playing this, and yeah, the real thing grind starts once there's like low rank, and then there's high rank, and high rank is like that's where you have to consider like, oh yeah, your armor resistance, what's the boss weak to. Then you start focusing on what weapons you want to craft, what weapon like strength it has, what like elements it is. But the real joy of Monster Hunter is like hanging out with friends and being like, all right, you want to get this one specific set of armor, so you help your friends fight this boss like 3 or 4 times, getting the loot. It's like raiding in World of Warcraft,
right? And
it's like, but loot is shared, so everyone gets like 6 monster bones, 6 whatever, fish eyes, whatever, and then you craft.
You don't have to
armor.
need and greed on things.
No. So it's the kind of game where it's like all cooperative play is rewarded. Whatever quest you're working on, it's kind of like permanent progression. So it's so satisfying. And then there's also trophies like do 100 multiplayer quests. You have your little palicos that you're leveling up also and crafting armor for. And
those are the cats, are they?
Yeah. And the armor sets in these games are so ridiculous. Like I think the 3rd or 4th boss you fight, I forget what it is, but you can turn your cat into like a little robot where its brain is in like a fishbowl.
A jar. Oh my god.
Yeah, and you can. There's like the boss. It's on the Resident Evil engine, so some of the bosses you fight look like just giant.
It's actually on the Reach for the Moon engine.
Oh, okay.
That's what it.
Wait, that's what it's called?
I was also mad to find out that it's not Resident Evil engine. It's Reach for the Moon engine.
Really?
Wow.
That's why the logo is the hand reaching for the moon. Sorry, Frank. I was like, I need to mention this annoying. That's what I thought. I think they're just, copping out so they could be like, nah, it's for everything, not just we just didn't repurpose our Resident Evil engine. Sorry.
No, yeah, but the boss designs are beautiful. I mean, there's like the Ragolos, like all the. No, wait, that's the WoW one. Whatever. There's like the
Is
staples.
it Rathalos?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
It's so close.
But the boss designs are beautiful. Like the third boss you fight is this giant spider, but it's like its core design looks like a pretty rose. So it's beautiful. I just fought this giant like tentacle boss, and then if you kill it, you can make your cat look like a octopus. And so it's very fluid and stuff, which is it's such a pretty game. So, but I'm excited.
That's like a double kink right there.
Oh yeah.
Cat and the octopus, like the furry and then the tentacles. That's a twofer. I love it.
Oh yeah, and it's great. But I'm excited to keep playing, get in the flow with it, and catch up to my friends because they're all just powering through. But yeah, it's Monster Hunter. But yeah, I would say if you're on PC, they do have like the benchmark demo. Although I've seen people say that the game runs worse than the benchmark.
You don't want that. That's a bait and switch right there.
I don't know if that's because of de novo or the DRS, whatever I don't know. But I'm playing on PS5 and it works great enough. I don't know how it works on PS5 Pro, but it's again. The last one I played was on Switch. I always wanted to buy Rise on like PS5 or Xbox and play it at high fidelity, but ever since they announced Wild, it's like, well, I'm not gonna double dip and
just gonna wait.
So now the wait's here. Crossplay. It takes a second to like, okay, the big. It's almost doing like the Nintendo Switch codes to get to join your friends. All players have a hunter ID that you have to add. There's also, you can make groups. So with my like friends in Twitch community, I made like a clan. I named it the NWO based on our WCW obsession.
Terrific.
But so if you're in a guild, it's easy to find your members, but it's like, in order to party up, it's not just simple as seeing your friends and joining in your friends. You have to create a link party. So you're in like, I don't know, that's what they call it. So once you invite someone to a link party, and then once you're in the link party, then you can join their quest.
Then you transfer your game to theirs.
Yeah. But it took my friends and I like 30 minutes to an hour to figure this out. Because it was like, you have your friends list, like PS5, whatever. But then it's like you have your Hunter ID, and then you can add each other as friends on Hunter profile, but you can also follow each other. Then you can also invite people to a link party. You can also invite them to your lobby. You can invite them to your guild. And so there's like 6 menus that they all think does the same thing. It was so, and maybe it's simplified, but it was like, why are there so many steps? Is this what's needed to do crossplay? I don't know. The other thing I love about Monster Hunter is also like, it has such an international audience. Like this, it's like one of the biggest game series in Japan. So half the time, their servers are filled with like all the Japanese text and characters. But I love seeing everyone's character designs. So like I joined the game and immediately, like the first character I saw in Monster Hunter was like someone had just made Piccolo, like the white and purple. Like people are making freaks in this, and it's awesome. And it's just, that's the stuff I love. It's the same like MMOs, like running around World of Warcraft, just seeing other players just do their thing. And so it's very charming. Everyone is really friendly in Monster Hunter, so people are so chill when it's not competitive. And I like PvE games, and that's what this is. So people are always eager to jump into SOS like. That's the other thing, too, is once you're in a server, it'll always say, like, oh, this person started the quest. Feel free to join.
Oh, that's
and then
cool.
If you join and you get, like, extra loot, so it incentivizes you helping out lower players. So, yeah, these games are great. I will say, if you've never played a Monster Hunter, these are intimidating. But, like, the story, a.k.a., like, 6-hour tutorial, it really does a very good job at, like, okay, this is a fire boss. Make sure you drink your, It's doing a good job, and you can do the SOS, get AI players, and then have real players come in. It's also the kind of thing where it's like the later you jump into the game, people will be way more leveled up. It's like just like World of Warcraft. You'll have level 60s joining you and killing the boss easily, but you can play it solo if you can. And that's what I ended up doing with like Monster Hunter on Switch. Was like I got so addicted to it that I ended up like playing it in bed or traveling at the airport and just. I remember once like. I think I tried playing Monster Hunter at like a Canadian airport on their Wi-Fi and still getting people joining. So once you're addicted to Monster Hunter, it really does.
You can't do that anymore. It's 25% slower.
Oh God. Yeah. So it's good. I'll keep playing it and see how it goes. And then they've promised like free seasonal updates, so more monsters. I think they said the only paid DLC will be cosmetics, and that's what I like about Monster Hunter 2 is they always do the goofiest collaborations. So they had like The Witcher 3 in the last one where you could just straight up play as Geralt. Yeah, and they've had like Sonic in this, like, and it's always cross promotions with like anime and other Japanese stuff.
You can play Sonic and Monster Hunter?
So the last one had Sonic and Tails, so you can make yourself look like Sonic and you could have your Palico be Tails. And yeah, so that's what I'm excited to see is all the goofy cosmetic collaborations. And then I'm doing Longsword, but I'm excited like the game this is a first. The game lets you have a secondary weapon loadout. So I think what they want you to do is have your like melee weapon and then have your secondary long range stuff. But if you want to, try out two different loadouts, but it incentivizes you to switch weapons and try different stuff, which is really
What are you
cool.
using? Like, what are your weapons?
So I do Longsword, which I when I first played Monster Hunter World, I did dual blades, which is very like almost like a rogue hack and slash, whatever. But you have such crappy range. So
it's how Jesse plays Kingdom Come Deliverance 2.
I'm going to play every first-person game where you can hold two weapons, just daggers from now on.
Even,
it was Avowed. Sorry,
yeah.
It's not the same thing. Tomato, tomato.
But I like the long. The like genuine like super great thing in this game. So the reason I like doing Longsword is it's so satisfying cutting off monster tails. And then if you do that, then you can like it's a separate thing to loot. You like hack the cool thing with Monster Hunter when you at the end of the fight, you have like 60 seconds before the quest ends. Everyone like loots the monster and it's just like this like Red Dead or whatever. You're just hacking and gutting this monster, and it's really satisfying. But like in these fights, if you cut off a monster's wing or like tail, that's a separate like corpse part to loot.
Oh,
and
cool.
So you can always like target the tail and if you whack it enough, then it's like the tail just falls off, and then like the monster limps away, and like the animation is so cool. So I started doing Longsword. And I would just target the tail. My friends would do other stuff, and if you do the hammer, you can bonk parts off and stuff that's the really cool thing with Monster Hunter is like this game doesn't have enemy health bars or whatever. It's all like visual damage. So you'll see you'll cut them and they'll have a cut. They'll start limping away and then you can capture them. What this game added is a new feature. It's called focus mode. So it's like almost I don't know, like any third person game, but you hold L2, but then you're all of a sudden you can specifically aim your sword or wherever and target real specific parts.
Like Raiden.
Yeah, exactly. and so they'll be wounded, and it'll show like this part of their flesh is red with a cut, and if you keep targeting it, that wound will explode, and you'll get like extra like it'll be like, oh, this lizard scale popped off. You'll get extra loot for targeting it. So it's like I don't know. I like it a lot because like so much of Monster Hunter, you'll hit your input. And there's like the animation starts and the monster will get out of the way, so you can kind of L2 and kind of almost retarget much faster.
Oh,
and
cool.
So yeah, the focus mode they call it, but it's like okay, you can aim your sword finally, as opposed to just like, and I'm sure people are experts at playing this, but it helped me a lot, and they tutorialize it. So focus mode and the wound feature, it also kind of guides you, like okay, hit its weak point for massive damage.
The more you talk about it, the more it sounds like it makes sense that this game's not running great. They're like we added all the stuff you wanted. It's open world. You can go anywhere you want. You can chop off their pinky toes. You can do the whole thing. So yeah, hopefully they figure out the performance stuff because it sounds like it's delivering a lot of new stuff, which you can't often say about sequels in 2025. So that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's great. I think so I just gotta play more of it because these are such people spend hundreds and hundreds of hours into it. I think.
How long does it take for you to finish the campaign generally?
I haven't like found it or asked around. It seems like a lot of my friends have been just beating it over the opening weekend, but I don't know if that's my save file says like I think like 7 to 9 hours, but sometimes I leave it idle. But and I've had friends say I'm pretty close to it. So
okay, so it's not very long.
No, yeah. And again, it seems like the campaign really is tutorial stuff. Like, here's every kind of type of fight, the scale of the fight, and then the real hunt begins. Like, all right, start making this armor, start killing this monster 10 times.
Did you buy any of the cosmetics? You said that the only DLC is cosmetics. There's a lot of it. There's $50 is what the cosmetic DLC pass is on its own. I think if you get the premium deluxe edition of this game, it is $110. So that's about 500 Canadian, I think, at this stage. Although I haven't.
Stop rubbing it in, man. Come on, damn.
I think it fucks us more, doesn't it? Doesn't it fuck us?
It will eventually, is what I'm gonna say. But
Yeah.
it definitely, we're screwed. It sucks.
Everyone's screwed. Great. Yeah. Hey, as long as the rich oligarchs and all their corporate friends are doing well, that's great. It's great. Who's gonna do it?
Wahoo!
Who's gonna hunt the real monsters?
Oh,
Sorry,
yeah.
I couldn't. Monster Hunter started playing in my ear, so I got very confused for a second there. That's why. It's an awkward silence. Any questions for Frank about Monster Hunter?
I do have one question. As someone who's never played a Monster Hunter game, do these games have like? Is it like there are towns embedded in an open world, or I feel like I always see people go back to the same camp and then go out into the open world? Is it?
This is not the game you are asking about.
I know it's not, but I was curious if like because this one seems like it's moving more towards like an open world presentation. I was curious if they've sort of strayed from the formula of like one camp, go out into the world, come back to the camp, or is it that there's like one hub?
Yeah, so there's like multiple camps around the whole world, and you can set up more camps. And I don't know, like, when you beat the game, if here's the actual secret place, because Monster Hunter Rise had such a core, like, you would pick your quest, put it on the quest board, do the fight, and then come back to this town. It was so, like, here's the shop where you upgrade your weapons craft. There's like, I think there's like been like 2 or 3 major towns, and you don't have to, like, it depends wherever the quest giver is, but there's again, kind of like World of Warcraft, there's like, here will be the village and then everything surrounding it. But I haven't found out where everyone genuinely like, what's the Stormwind of this game? What's the it starts you in one quest hub area, you do a few quests, and then you're in a different quest hub doing quests and keep kind of moving, but you can teleport back to any of those like instantly and do it. And they've also promised they're going to have a gathering hub down the line, which is like, I think just one big open world where all players can be and just hunt and gather stuff. But I don't,
once they figure out the performance issues, probably.
But I don't know, like, the main giants, because that was the thing I really liked about Monster Hunter Rise was like I knew where everything was. Like, this shop had this here. There is one like main hub I keep coming back to, but I don't know if that's just the beginner area. So I'm interested to see once you beat the game where it is. I think I just got to it, yeah, that's kind of the loop of it, is you do your hunts and then come back to this. But what's weird about this being completely open is you finish the quest and you're just still out there, and it's like, oh, so I'm just no one's teleporting me back home. I gotta drive. I have to go back home myself. I don't know.
Can you fast travel?
Yeah, you can fast travel, and it's really you know I think it's touch pound the thing, pick and it's all pinned there. You can, I think, triangles, sub menus, and stuff like that. The only complicated thing is just figuring out how to join your friends. Everything else seems pretty easy so far, but. Yeah, play these games long enough and you'll just get that muscle memory.
Does it, like, because that open world seems like more of a focus and you're left out there after the mission sort of wraps up, is there more of a focus on exploration, or do you typically feel like you're pretty goal-oriented when you're out in the world?
Yeah, I think you're pretty much usually always goal-oriented. So I think, like, end game stuff, if you need to craft X amount of things, like, you're always, even as you're fighting monsters, there's always... like loot to get, like here's a honey, I don't know, here's a honeycomb or whatever what it's called, where the bees live. What's it? Wait, genuine. What's it called? Where the bees live?
Beehive.
Beehive. There you go.
Yeah,
Beehive. Scrape honey, minerals, herbs to collect. In your palico, it always has these like green little flies will flutter towards it, letting you know, like, ooh, here's something you collect. And as you're collecting it, it shows like, oh, you collected 2 herbs. We've added a potion to your bot. And it seems like only a few times you need to specifically go out and like hunt loot to it, but you're always kind of looting as you go. And you can collect like side quests. It's like kill 14 of 14 monkeys, whatever that is. But no, you're usually when you're playing this, you kind of know exactly what you're looking for. You'll pick your quest. Okay, hunt this giant monster. It shows it on the map. You keep doing it. If you want to, you can just kill monsters, but it's like I feel like everyone who plays this is very progression oriented. Like, but that's what they mentioned, the gathering hubs. I don't know if later it's you need to farm stuff, but for now it seems pretty focused. But you can just go out there if you want to, because you get what's called, I think it's guild points. So the first time you find like a certain type of flower, the first time you kill a certain, like, there's the giant monsters, but there's also just regular wildlife that don't do much damage. Sometimes if you're fighting a monster, they'll try to interact or attack you. So the first time you kind of make any discovery, and that was a big part of Monster Hunter Worlds, was you're part of like this adventurers guild or researcher guild, and you have there was like this old man that's like, we're out here looking for all the vegetation. Tell me about the different plants, and I'll reward you. So there's little like side quests, like you're filling out your, I think, Monster Hunter guide, and I feel like it's not that different than like Animal Crossing or even like Yakuza, where it's
your bestiary or whatever.
Yeah. So they have that in there, but it's like, no, you're always pretty focused on what you're doing, and that, again, that's the fun of it, is like, yeah, going back to the main hub, like the post game. This is how it was in Rise and Worlds. You go back to the post game hub, pick a quest on the thing. It lets everyone in the server know, like, oh, this person needs this quest. If anyone wants to help, join in. You go out, you start hunting. People start populating it, and it can be a 20-minute fight, but you're all in the flow, and it's just I don't know. It's the rhythm, the dance with the monster is genuinely fun. Like, I'll start playing and you're just attacking, dodging, reset, eat your potion, attack, and I don't know. It's really, really fun.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Nice work. All right, that's Monster Hunter Wilds, available on everything, depending how many frames you want, I guess. Yeah, which one did you get? Just the regular $60 one?
Yeah, just I think there was like a pre-order thing, so it gave me an extra like pendant you could equip, like an accessory that gives you, I don't know, more health refill speed.
Pay to win then, huh?
Oh yeah, no, it was some kind of like.
Makes
almost
your
like
cats even sexier.
Conquistador out. It was like a conquistador outfit. So you have like a cool little hat thing, and yeah, you can toggle on or off whether you want to have your armor on. So
what Capcom character do you want them to add cosmetic DLC for?
Street Fighter stuff is always cool, and I feel like they usually do it. Nothing springs to mind. They put Spy Family stuff in Street Fighter, but I want man, there already is one armor set that looks like a mech, but it'd be crazy to have like Gundam stuff, or like to have sci-fi stuff in Monster Hunter, because it's such a like, I don't know, like outdoorsy nature game, but to have like robot stuff in it would be really
robot
cool.
Calicos, yeah. Calicos, calico critters. Is that what I said?
Almost,
Palicos,
yeah.
Because of your pals.
Palicos. My lord, Monster Hunter Wilds. Check it out, or give it a couple of weeks and see if the PC version gets better. I'm gonna run through a couple of mine pretty quick, because I did a bit of Next Fest, but I want to jump over to Jesse for his Next Fest stuff. I played. He is He is Coming is a good fun, tight loop. Yeah, it's hard not to like that game. I played a bunch of it. I played maybe 6 or 7 goes of it.
Nice.
Got the boss that you get tends to really determine how hard you're going to take this loop, kind of.
Yeah.
It was fun, yeah, and it's fun getting like an interesting combination of different abilities that, you know, like anything that basically adds to your health and power, like boons it or multiplies it, is super helpful. So I really enjoyed that. And Skin Deep, I didn't play enough of Skin Deep, but I kind of played enough of the demo to be like, okay, I'm going to play this when it comes out, and then kind of was happy to leave it. But yes, the best part of it was probably Meow.
Yeah, it's so good.
Big fan of Meow. I played Esoteric Ebb. Have you seen this? This is one of the, like, it's like a Disco Elysium-like. It has a sort of, I don't even know how you describe the art style. Kind of, you know what it reminds me of is, remember, who's that guy who does the, who does the videos that are like rotoscoped YouTube videos?
Joel Haver?
Like, yes, Joel Haver. I always called him Joel Haver. It's probably Haver though. Joel Haver. Yeah, it kind of gives me that vibe, or it's like Mobius meets medieval or something. It has a very interesting look to it. It looks great. And yeah, I played a bit of that. The demo is tight enough, as you'd imagine, in like a story thing. It seems like it's pretty far from development. I saw the developer talking about it on Reddit, and he's doing it all by himself, it sounds like, which is pretty crazy. I want to make sure I get his name in here. Christopher Beauregard. Yeah, so it has a great look to it. It has like it's a bit more dice rolly than Disco is, or like explicitly. Like it'll, you know, kind of tell you what you need to pass this check in the dice rolls, and you sort of, that stuff is fronted a bit more in your face. But it has a similar thing where your skills are talking to you. There's no voice acting in it. Art style looks great, and it's not like, it's very Disco Elysium in some ways, like the skills talking to you, but it's very not in lots of ways. Like the graphics are very much its own thing. The setting is very much different, but it's clearly trying to sort of pick up where that game sort of left the I don't know what you even call those games, tabletop RPG, story focused, narrative focused RPGs. I don't know. So definitely worth wish listing, and if you're interested in playing it early, check out that demo. I don't know if Christopher's got some artists and stuff working for him as well. It seems like a lot of work for one person.
Yeah, if that's all one person, that's super impressive. It looks great. You're totally right. Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah, it looks good. The screenshots look amazing, and it looks good when it's playing as well. It's a good time. The one I do want to talk about though from Next Fest is Secret Agent Wizard Boy and the International Crime Syndicate.
These Harry Potter
Szymanskis. The Szymanskis have done it. They've made the Harry Potter game we all wanted to play. I didn't know there was this many Szymanskis, first of all.
This is the youngest one, right?
David, John, and Evan are all published by David and developed by John and Evan.
Okay.
So they're like the Jackson 5 or something. It's just like a talented group.
The Skarsgårds, they just keep popping up. There's more of them.
Exactly, yes. Hopefully being treated better by their parents than at least one of those. This is a fucking weird thing, and I love it. So have you guys played this at all?
I've not played it. It's not out in early access, is it yet?
There's a demo up as part of Next Fest. This is such a fucking weird game. So this is it's clearly like Harry Potter, it's clearly Harry Potter but taking the piss out of Harry. I think the baddie in the game is Headmaster Grumblemort. You know what I mean? And everyone in the game speaks in like a la 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 like British accent, and the shit they say is kind of like what Americans think English people say and sound like in those movies. So it's like I don't know how to explain this. It's like a puzzle box immersive sim multiplayer game. So you load into this game and you have 7 days to basically solve the mystery. Presumably the CIA or someone is asking you, Secret Agent Wizard Boy, to uncover the mystery of Grumblemort, and it just drops you in this world and you're just jumping around collecting wizard biscuits, which is the currency in this world, and just fucking around and trying to figure out how this thing works. So you have spells, and when he does the spell, he says whatever it is, something stupid every single time he does it. If you do it to one of the other students, the prefect there will just kill you, and then it'll be oh, you lost a day, so you've only got a certain amount of days until you can get to. So it's they're basically lives until you figure out this mystery. And then the world is just full of objects that have uses, and you can combine them, and they have physics, and your second spell you get, I think probably second for everyone, is one that allows you to pick up objects and move them. So then you start to use them in a very sandboxy way to get up on top of things you presumably aren't meant to get up on top of, access new areas of the school, which this whole thing takes place in some sort of version of Hogwarts. But then there's a pot, a brewing potion pot that you can throw in things and it'll spit out potions. You don't know what the potions do until you take them, and some of them are amazing. One of them just broke all my bones, so I was just a floppy boy walking around. Other ones give you health. Another one set me on fire. You can, they're consistent, but you have to basically learn them by just doing them. And yeah, it's I've not played it multiplayer, but you can play with a bunch of other people. I don't know how many. On the Steam page, I don't think it even says how many. I was trying to look it up, but I've seen the video. There's at least 3 other people, I think, running around. The way they put it is that it is the least cooperative game, because the chances of you actually cooperating is quite unlikely. Yeah, it's a very silly thing, and it kind of feels like content warning and all these other games that'll be these interesting multiplayer sandboxes that a bunch of people can jump in and mess around with. But I actually found it's quite fun to play solo as well. It kind of feels like maybe it's more solo compatible than some of those games are, where you're very much needing multiple people to do different roles. So I'm into it. It's a very weird, silly thing, and it's fun to fuck around with.
The magic setting is so perfect too, because just like moving 3D objects around in a game world is like it feels like Gmod, right? Like there's nothing like magical or immersive about it, but giving the characters actual magic and being like, oh, that's how you're like manipulating the game world in a way that feels very like in-engine or like Gmod-y, but having it be a magic school is like a brilliant framing for all of those things to make sense.
Yeah, that's a great point. It does have like a I think they pitch it on the Steam page as, and let me look up the line, it's pretty funny. Retro-themed third-person action straight from the days of Unreal Engine 1. And like you said, moving that stuff around and and the jank associated with it, the physics nonsense that happens and all that feels very much at home in this world. Yeah, because all the other wizards are walking around like, yeah, whatever, and you can walk up to them and they say stuff and... You can kill them and take their wizard biscuits and then go to the wizard biscuit shop and buy a bunch of fucking sticks or whatever it is so you can make potions. And yeah, it's silly. So Secret Agent Wizard Boy and the International Crime Syndicate. I'm sorry, Pirate Yakuza in Hawaii. You might actually have to fight for best title of the year, as it turns out. So you can check that out on Steam and it'll be coming to early access, I think, March 6th. You're kidding.
Oh, nice. Wow.
2 days from now. So by the time this is up, the game will be out in early access. All right.
I wonder what will be in the early access because the demo was pretty short. So
it was. I wonder, is it? Yeah. The demo. I've also gone back and watched a couple of streams that they did, and the demo seems to be a build that they had going maybe 4 or 5 months ago. So I'm
I played
hopeful.
This version last Next Fest. So
oh, you did?
Yeah, it was older, but maybe there's been some updates. But from what I remember, it sounds like you're playing exactly the same thing I played. It wasn't overly deep. I'm like curious how do you make that more of that early access, right? If there's another level, I'm like, is it going to be more secrets that you throw the spells at? And like, it was fun. It was a fun little sandbox. You're totally right. But I'm just curious to see what the full thing ends up being and what's in the early access version. I guess I'll have to check it out in a couple days.
Yeah, because if they put this thing out tomorrow and it was $5, you'd be like, okay, sure. Like it's a tight little loop and it kind of works as is. But you're right. If they're doing early access, I wonder, or maybe that's what you just do. Maybe that's what live games are now, is that they are just early access because we're saying we're not done, but like this is kind of it. Like I guess by the time this podcast comes out, you folks will have a better idea of this than we certainly do at the moment. Yeah, okay, and then let's head over to you. I've got one other game I want to talk about, but it's a bit of an esoteric one. And it's not Esoteric Ebb. Jesse, what have you pulled out of Next Fest? You got a couple more here.
Yeah, I played a ton of stuff. I think I ended up playing like 250 demos or something, and I got a couple more I want to check out. I like it. I have fun playing these demos. I like seeing weird stuff that sucks, stuff that doesn't suck. And luckily there were a couple things that I really, really liked to want to talk about on the pod. So 3 of them. One is Hot Wax. It's like this Tetris style puzzle game. It's really good. I think it's out on itch.io right now, but if you are a Neanderthal like me and can't figure out how to download an executable, you'll be able to pick it up on Steam shortly, I think. It's really good. It's like, what if you took Tetris, but instead of making the Tetraminos do the typical like set up 4 lines, you get a Tetris and like, whoa, the score goes up. This one is your pieces are candles. And you like intermittently, instead of looking for and praying for a line piece, you're praying for a fire that you use to light the wicks of the candles. And your goal is to sort of extend the life of the fire. The longer it goes, the more points that you get, right? But the pieces are set up like typical Tetris pieces. So you'll have like a T block, and if you light if it's like, set up on the left where the T's sticking out, you light the left side. Well, if it goes to the center, that could snuff out the flame. So you're trying to keep the flames from getting snuffed, fighting against the physics of a typical Tetris game, and just trying to keep the fire going. It's a really fun spin on the typical structure of a Tetris game that I haven't seen done before. Usually they try to do like, what if Tetris, but like real physics? Like, I don't care. Like Tetris, but all the blocks turn into sand when you make a Tetris. Whatever, man. Dr. Mario. But
I think 2 people we've interviewed have done, because John Blow did a version of Tetris that was like, was that the real physics one? And didn't Edmund do one, Jeremy?
I don't remember. Did he?
Or did he do one?
Was it falling like corpses of children or something?
Oh no, it wasn't. It was. Yeah, exactly. It would be something. It would be.
That's either a legitimate question or you're talking shit. Either way, it works.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll have to. Yeah. Anyway, sorry, Jesse. Go on.
No, it's really good though. It's fun. It's a good little tactical version of a Tetris game. I enjoyed it a lot. The second one I want to mention, Moves of the Diamond Hand. This is the new game from Cosmo D, who I thought I had played one of their games before. Best known for Betrayal at Club Low, I think would be the only one you'd know. Which I hear really good things. I thought I had played it, but I think I just learned it through osmosis of like watching video essays. But this game's very strange. You should totally, I think you guys would like the demo. Jeremy, I think you might enjoy it. Danny, I'm like 50-50 because it sounds like you like a lot of this stuff. So it's a first person adventure RPG sort of thing where you're interacting with characters and you have a lot of dice rolls. So you get these dialogue options when you talk to these very funny looking characters. The first person you talk to is like an old music teacher who works as a maintainer on a train. I don't know what the word is, maintenance guy. His character model's very funny looking. Everything is very weird. It's very strange. There's like giant pigeons that you meet as soon as you get off of the train. That's the sort of tutorial area. And you interact with these characters, again, through dialogue options that all have dice rolls associated with them. So you can like level up your wit or your music or your deception. Typical sort of RPG stats. There's some other funny ones there. And as time goes on, you unlock new traits that like mess with your rolls. So as soon as I got off of the train, there's a spilled bubble tea on the ground. And like, it's this huge, big, like momentous moment for you to not fail the bubble tea roll, but I failed it. So then I was wet and like, but I was also determined to never let that happen again. So that affected my stats going forward, and the rolls were different, and the writing is very funny. It's like super systematic. Like it's way more involved than I thought it would be. It has inspired me to go back and play the older Cosmo D games. Cause like, this is so weird. It's one of those things where like there's no way I could describe it. Nothing I say would make it sound cooler than it actually is to just play it. And you'll know right away if it's for you. It's got that kind of weird presentation where it's like you kind of just want to see what's around the corner because it's so bizarre every single time you check out something new. So that one was really cool.
Nice one. Yeah, I'm going to check that one out. Give it a whirl. And then
I think
the other one you have here is one that I downloaded and have been threatening to play for a while because I'm a big soccer freak. But you actually played it, so I'm interested in what you make of, is it Despelote?
Yeah, I think you nailed it. I don't know. I don't speak Spanish, or well enough anyway. I did Google Translate. I think that means mess. I don't know.
Okay.
So, but yeah, it's really, like, if you like soccer, I think you'll dig it, but it's also just, like, I have no personal connection to soccer. Like, I had neighbors who were really into it, and we'd go watch the World Cup with them, and they were cheering, and I was like, yeah, I guess, I don't know. It's 1-0 right now. It's been an hour and a half, but I get the excitement. But I'm not talking shit. I wish I cared about soccer. But playing this game was really interesting because Despelote is basically a sort of like autobiographical retelling of the childhood of one of the developers. What's his name? Julian Cordero. Apologies if I'm butchering that. But it's about a child growing up in Quito, I think is how you say it, Ecuador, in 2001. At that point in time, they had qualified to participate in the 2002 FIFA World Cup. So it was like a huge deal for them, right? It totally like shifted the culture in that area because, and I think this is a funny thing in the game, or it's like just a legitimate retelling, but it is kind of funny to see it. Their previous sort of sports thing that they were really excited about was speed walking. They had they had a statue built for the Olympic, I think they won gold or bronze or something, in speed walking. And that was a really big deal. Everyone was really into speed walking. And now it's about soccer, and you play as this kid who's enamored by the act of playing soccer, who just like in class is staring out the window, watching people practice. On their lunch break, they're out playing soccer with their friends, but also the way that you interact with the world is this first person kicking a ball. Like that's the interaction system is you kick a ball to your friends, you wave at people. You can see a fellow classmate being berated by a teacher when you look through the window. It's odd to be like nostalgic. Like I'm still thinking about it, feeling nostalgic about this world I've never been, these characters I don't know, this like subculture of loving sports that I never really got to engage with as a child. And just, I don't know, it's very beautiful. It's a cultural divide that I don't understand, and yet I want to be in that sort of place. Like the scale of it is really small too, because you're playing as a child, so everything is so much lower to the ground in a really cool way. There's like a moment where the character is daydreaming, and they're daydreaming about soccer and like the freedom that you can get from falling in love with that sport, and the way that impacted the city he lives in the country, and the rest of the world, it seems.
Oh man, that's cool.
It's a very beautiful game. Yeah, it's like 15 minutes too. It's like a really short
Ireland has a very similar association with Italia 90, where we got into the World Cup Italia 90, and I mean Ecuador is a decently sized country. It's like 20 million people, I think. But the problem is that they're in South America. So they've got Brazil, Argentina, and then even countries like, Colombia and Venezuela have had, decent teams in the past and stuff like that. So, particularly tricky for them to get through. But World Cup Italia 90 was like a cultural moment. And so was USA 94 in Ireland. We got to the quarterfinals in Italia 90 and it was pretty massive. So that's cool. I didn't realize that was actually what it was about. So are the games happening like during this? Like, are people is it happening during the World Cup and then like the group stages games are like being referenced or anything like that?
The timeline's a little loose. I think there's a couple of games going on in the moments of the story, because like it opens with this fake NES almost kind of like soccer game. It's like you're playing a game in a game that's about soccer. Like, it's so strange, but it's a very cool way of setting it up. And your parents are talking about the game as it's happening or about different things that had happened. And then eventually I think you hear about one too. So yeah, I think it's in the midst of them qualifying. They haven't qualified yet, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, so it's during okay.
Yeah, so it's sort of watching it and getting excited and being like, oh man, this could be it. Like, we could finally move on and watch them in FIFA, which would be awesome. But yeah, it's really, really cool. I'm very excited to see where they go with the story and where the rest of the game's experience takes you, because you could see the rest of the world at certain points. You could see like down the street and all these different cultural things going on. There's like an opportunity to pick up food during lunch, which I thought was cool. It's like a cultural thing. I don't remember what it's called, but like that moment was awesome. I want to be there. I want to go to Ecuador now, baby. I want to live there.
I've been following this game for a while as well. The thing that I find really interesting about it is that slice of life games, I feel like it was slice of life anything. This goes for slice of life movies or whatever. I feel like there is a sort of like very thin line between like, this place is inherently interesting because it is different than the place that I grew up, and then it can very easily veer into like, oh, this is just people doing ordinary shit and it's hard for me to like immerse myself enough to find like natural curiosity about this thing. I think Despelote doing a sort of cultural moment in a specific place is really brilliant, because it's like a cultural fabric that, like, that's why it's exciting to be there in the real world in that moment, is that it's a cultural fabric that is shared, that ties everyone together. You see your neighbor down the street, he's like, oh shit, did you see the game today? Like, that's like a real social fabric. But then in the context of a game world, it gives it like special context for everything that is unifying. It's not just like walking around being like, oh, that's what a convenience store is like in Ecuador.
Whoa, I would never fly there on purpose, but I love being in this video game version of it. It's that kind of thing. It's like when it's totally, you're 100% nailed it, because like I can connect in some ways to when the Raptors won, I think in 2016, 2018, fake fan. And I would go, we went to Toronto for the big celebration, but leading up to it, everyone talking about basketball in this way. We didn't give a shit about basketball until the Raptors almost won the NBA championship, baby. And then everyone was talking about it. We were excited. I imagine it's how hockey fans feel when the Leafs almost get there for the 18th time and then fumble. Yeah, sports, it turns out, are actually really cool and deserve more respect, especially in the gaming space.
If you like this story, I would recommend the documentary Next Goal Wins. I think I've talked about it before on here, about the American Samoan soccer team, because it's basically about them trying to win a game, which is pretty great. Not the movie.
I was just gonna say,
I've not seen
it. That's the documentary.
It's hard to find now is the problem. I saw it in a cinema like 10 years ago when it came out, maybe 12 years ago when it came out. The documentary is fantastic. I've not watched the Michael Fassbender, Taika Waititi film, which has the same name and seems completely redundant considering how good the documentary was. But it's a very very similar thing where it's like the sport is a window into a culture that you mightn't otherwise sort of it's a good vector for exploring that and sort of what masculinity means in American Samoa and all that sort of stuff. It's pretty cool.
This is only tangentially related, but when Jesse said that there was a cultural unifying moment when the Raptors won, I was picturing him as a caveman talking about some sort of mass conflict against dinosaurs.
Raptor!
And then when the Raptors won, it's like, yeah, we all had to really come together to fight them or something.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
We all danced around.
Canada's such a strange country. We've had
I can't believe they still have dinosaurs there.
I know.
Yeah, people. It is funny when you think about it because we do have the most dinosaurs or whatever I think in North America, or at least the world. Maybe the world. I'm not sure. I have to ask the dinosaurs. But there were like so many fossils. It's so cool. We're so fake. People think we live in igloos. It's a normal place up here, guys. It's a little weird that you talk like that.
Yeah, it's normal, but also like Drake lives there, so we have to close the border.
Unfortunately, if anyone ever asks, I don't like Drake. I was always a Kendrick fan, and the Super Bowl halftime was good. I don't care what you think.
Stuff. Oh, I like to look at the camera there. That was very
say Drake.
Yeah. Let's leave it there. No more lines. Good stuff. Despelote, Moves of the Diamond Hand, and Hot Wax. Were Jesse's 3 there. As ever, he will do the incredible work of putting these links in the show notes. Thank you, Jesse. Can I briefly talk about a game you played last year and talked up, and then I just played it, and it's absolutely fucking brilliant. Rise of the Golden Idol. Yeah. I finally did it. I don't know what it was. Last week I was just in a bit of a funk, and I was like, I need to just find a game to disappear into for a little bit, and I was like, oh yeah, I'll give that thing a go. It's like this puzzle box game that Jesse talked about last year, where like each one is a different murder, and you have to figure out who did what and what not by basically unlocking words in the environment and then moving those words around in like a sort of Mad Lib style story that's got a lot of holes in it. And you have to say such and such killed such and such with the candlestick and the blah, blah, blah. But way more descriptive than that. This was easily, if I played it last year, this would have easily been in my top 5 games of the year. This is like maybe it might have threatened for the top. It's absolutely brilliant. I adored it from start to finish. I could not put it down.
Awesome.
I did the first mission and I was like, I am in. This is fantastic. It's just so smart. Like the stuff at the start is very trying to get you into the what can work, and then each new episode basically tries to mess with the format in some way, which is very cool. So by the end, like the end mission is kind of complicated. Like the last 3 levels or so gets a little bit, it never gets very difficult. Like I think that's one thing that I liked about it. And it does have a hint system, which is sort of very funny. It makes you kind of wait to get your hints and do some breathing. And I ended up not using it much at all. I kind of messed around with it early to see what it would let me do, and it kind of often didn't give me the hint I was looking for. Actually, it would like tell me stuff that I kind of had already figured out. But the later stuff is great, and each case, each incident where somebody. Does everyone? No, I guess there's not always a murder. I guess there's like a prison break in one of them, and there's some other bits and bobs.
Some sort of crime.
Exactly. Some sort of incident or crime or assault or something. And each one of those, but then also, ties in beautifully to this just really well written cultural like horror story. Like it's of this, the idol itself is sort of like. Largely, this is just a story about people being bad and being bad to each other and being selfish, and then it goes in a direction like the actual sort of undercurrent of, I guess, because like it's kind of like Disco Elysium in that it doesn't take place in our world. It takes place in like a human society, and it has like I think the dates are all in the 70s, and you can kind of get that vibe that it's in our past kind of, but like it's not. Like the countries are all totally different, and there's all these like they have their own sport called Peel, which people are referencing and stuff, and it adds this like otherworldliness to the whole thing that I was completely infatuated with. I needed to learn more about the world through that, and then because of that, it's able to add in sort of some of this magical realism, and it feels like it's part of the world. It doesn't feel like it's just like adding weirdness to our reality, and it stands out. It's kind of like, oh, maybe this is just like the history. Like my favorite mission was the one in the museum. Do you remember this? Where
yes, the like multiple days museum puzzle.
Was it the days one? It wasn't the days
where
one.
Or like the power goes out.
It was the one where the where it was right near the end, and it's the one where there were like 4 or 5 different things from the past.
Yes.
And the different eras that happened. And you are basically unpacking that was fucking brilliant. Because
there's so many like that. Yeah.
Yeah. It's really good. And I've gone back now and started playing
Case?
Is it Case of the Golden Idol?
Yeah.
So this is Rise of the Tomb Raider. Rise of the Golden Idol. The other one's Case of Golden Idol. I'm enjoying it. I will say there are certain like housekeeping things that this one does better, or like you don't have to click on all the words in this, like they just auto-populate.
A lot more quality of life for this one, especially because they had to make it for mobile. So,
oh right, yeah. That makes sense that we don't have to do all that stuff. And then also, while the art style in the first one is also very like strong and good in one direction, the art style in the second game is like, this is one of the best looking 2D games I've ever played. It's like it's.
What was the latest Monkey Idol? I was thinking about that when I was.
It's very similar in that it's like it's a similar kind of thing, but the faces are almost like the faces in Hotline Miami or something. You know, they're like sort of like they're on a loop and they're kind of like overly exaggerated and like the things that are happening in the world are it's like a frozen moment in time that you're going through, and you're going through different, you know, oftentimes there are different rooms, and I can't say enough about this game, man. Rise of the Golden Idol is. If you look it up on the Steam, and if you're like me, what I did was immediately wishlisted because it looked fascinating. But there is also a demo, so if you're even just flirting with it, give that a go. But yeah, I have since bought the DLC pack.
I was
for
just
the
going to
new
say
one.
you're going to be so happy. There's DLC dropping very soon.
Soon, it looks like, and then each of those is its own chapter. So like 3 or 4 levels, maybe kind of
Should
thing.
Be anyway, that's how it was for the first one.
It's a long game too. Like they give you enough. Like by the end, I was like, I mean, if the game was twice as long, I would be still playing it. Like I was not sick of this at all. I will play this. I'll play whatever they put out. But it also felt like very. Yeah, I thought it was about to end, and then the final mission with the multiple times of during that day and all that stuff was really good. What a fucked up world as well. Absolutely.
Yeah, just the way it opens up is so good.
I think the ending isn't great. That's the only thing. I think the actual final resolution ended up being far less interesting than what had happened before. But I also was like, I don't care.
I think they were like, we got to sell some DLC. We got to
maybe
give you the opportunity to care a little bit more. Yeah, it's so good. I love the detective style gameplay. The way that it sort of like throws you for a loop too and makes you feel confident in your own understanding, and then by the next mission you're like, wait, that's not even what the world was. Like there's that earlier one that you do with the at the old lady's house, trying to figure out what happened, who died, who did she kill someone, and then like you see recurring characters, you watch their backstories evolve over time, and you're like, oh, she's related to this guy, she works for this company. It's so well done. Like it's just so smart. You're totally right. Like the way that you're describing this game is so beautiful and so like straightforward and also very deep. Like there's so much going on, but again, the gameplay is just putting words in blanks and then figuring it out. But because of the way it's presented, because of the art style and the way that you learn information is usually like bits and pieces of a letter or small parts of like someone's ID that you connect the dots and figure out this is this guy's uncle who died because he had this thing. Like just watching that unfold as a player and learning so much about the world, it's almost like you become a participant in this weird conspiracy that is surrounding the Golden Idol. It's so cool. Like I can't believe that they made 2 of them and they're both that good. It's nuts.
It actually like also made me like realize my own I'd say like prejudices or biases. I think it's like my assumptions I make, because when you go into the tip screen, first of all it says, okay, here's the first thing you should do. Make sure that you've explored everything. Next, challenge your own assumptions.
Yep.
And that was like the number one thing that I was doing in this game, where I would assume something because I read something earlier about a character or about a situation, and my brain would just like kind of like tick that box, like that's what's happened. But then as stuff went on, I wouldn't realize that I had still had that earlier assumption. And then the amount of times in this game where like you think you know what happened, and then actually just from like going back and reading, like all you really do is reading what people have said or you know, re-exploring areas, and then you're like, and they're so good at like sort of presenting maybe a version, and then you got like there's one where you have to like say who did what. They'll do things like they the first thing is usually like find everyone's names, right? Because then at least when you're filling in the final quiz, you're not just getting people's names wrong and then forever not knowing if that's what's wrong with the answer. So they kind of, if you get all the names right, they'll go like, okay, you got all the names right, or like they let you know that the sort of yellow light is the oh, there's two of them are wrong but everything else is fine, and that's good. It kind of lets you know.
And they color code the answers too, so like you can't go, this guy's name is Phil Sewer Pipe, like it's pretty clear what the name ones are supposed to be.
There are names, objects, and then sort of, they divide them up, right? But then they also give you other ones, like in the prison one, there's like different faces in the cells, and you have to say who is in what cell. And it basically is a way of like, sort of like gating your knowledge to be like, okay, you know this now. You know those are their names. You know that's where they are. And then they can get more and more complicated. So by the time you're filling in the last part, at least you can reference that stuff. You can even bring it up and drag the names from that panel over. So which is pretty cool. But yeah, the amount of times where I would realize something after the fact and it totally spin my head over. Like I was so amazed by that. And one of them being like, there's one where you have to say who was this person and who was that person, and there's five gaps.
Yeah. I think I know the one you're talking about.
Yeah, and you have like 10 people and there's 5 names, and it turns out it's only like 2 people, but they're playing multiple people. And I never even thought about it until I was like, wait a second, are they that and that? And then it was like and then I kept going. I was like, oh wait, is it like all the same person, or is it that? Yeah, it's so, they're so smart. Like, it's really cool. Anyway, Rise of the Golden Idol. Danny was late to the party once again, but if you are, don't be. Go play it. It's fucking great.
And again, if you have Netflix, it's free on your phone or your iPad.
Man, there you go. That'd be a good iPad game. That'd be good fun. Okay, Jeremy, tell us about your wonderful world of tiny little seed boys and girls and things.
I just played Pikmin 1 for the first time ever.
Hell yeah. Dude, I'm so glad I get to use the music between the sections. You're so welcome, audio listeners.
Welcome to the Resistance, Jeremy.
I've never played a Pikmin game before in my life, and I feel like the reason I hadn't played one is sort of like what's interesting about this and why it's worth discussing. I guess I always thought Pikmin was like, I think looking in from the outside, Pikmin looks incredibly simplistic. Like it just seemed like I kind of knew what it was without playing it. And I think the thing that I found really delightful about it is that it kind of is, but in a way that is like, it's so much more than the sum of its parts. I think that there's a really good video essay by the channel Good Blood that talks about this concept of hakoniwa. It's a Japanese term that means box garden, often translated as miniature garden. And this concept of hakoniwa was talked about a lot in the context of the design team behind the Zelda games. And the idea was basically that like this world of Zelda was this sort of like miniature garden that is trying to, this is a Japanese cultural concept like of these miniature gardens, but the thing that they're trying to do is sort of create these miniature versions of larger spaces. And so Zelda, everyone knows that Zelda was like the Miyamoto's childhood and trying to capture this feeling of like wandering the countryside, but in miniature. And I think that Pikmin is sort of like not only a literalization of that, but a really good example of why this concept is interesting, which is that it's like, it feels like it is toy-like. It feels like you're peering into a real physical place, and a place with rules, with a place that is so hard to explain because it's such a fucking nebulous concept. But it's I guess what I'm saying is that it feels like in interacting with Pikmin, the mechanics are simple, but it surprises me and transcends that in ways that I think are really unexpected. One example of this is sort of the fuzziness of the mechanics as you are herding, 50 Pikmin around to follow you and go do different things. Sometimes there's like a straggler that gets left behind. Sometimes you'll accidentally order them to like pick up a thing and then walk back. And then when they're walking back, they'll be on track to get eaten by like a big bug thing. And so it's like, I guess, I don't know. I was surprised by what this game was because I thought it was just going to be like almost like an RTS where I was like ordering the little Pikmins around to just do these little tasks. But instead it feels like an ant farm or something. I was surprised by how much. I guess simulation is kind of the word, but simulation implies a much more sterile thing than what I think this actually is.
And I think like as well, because this is a first party Nintendo game, right? Where they don't tend to do that very much. Like this was a lot more tech demo-y than a lot of stuff that was coming out on. I mean, I barely play any of the new ones. I played the original on GameCube. What are you playing on?
I'm on GameCube.
GameCube.
Yes. Wink, GameCube. Yeah. I remember at the time it feeling because they were doing like when the GameCube was getting announced, they were doing a lot of these tech demo-y things which Nintendo didn't really do, right? Like because these were different class of chip that was able to do some of this stuff, but I feel like a lot of the games didn't, but this one kind of did. Like it felt like weirdly systemic in a way that like. They don't like. I couldn't tell you anything about the fucking character of was Oliver. Is that his name?
Yeah, almost.
I couldn't tell you like story wise or I couldn't tell you a thing. But like it almost felt like a game that was born from like some sort of tech, like R&D kind of thing. Or
like what was the tech? It was like the Mario 99 or whatever.
Exactly.
Mario 128, whatever it was, where all the little Marios running around.
Yeah.
You can feel glimpses of that when you're running, and all the Pikmin are like gathered around you. And
that was the basis for Pikmin. Was that tech demo?
I figured
it was really.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, there you go. That's. Yeah.
You can like feel like the tech demo-ness of it when you're running and there's 50 Pikmin around you, and their animations are sort of adaptive to you. So like in one example, I had a bunch of little Pikmin around me, and one was kind of like shunted in front of me because there were so many gathered around me, and he they all have their sort of like canned run animation, but he was running backwards while like looking at Olimar. And yeah, I guess that's a good point that like I think what is kind of special about this game that is a feeling that permeates a lot of older Nintendo games for me, which is like it is trying to push into new technological ground, but it is like in doing so discovering little moments of delight like that where like the animation gets weird and they're adapting for it, like the little guy running backwards. Or
it's almost like emergent moments in a Nintendo game which you didn't really get, right? Like even Sunshine was like, I mean, technically, there's a lot of cool shit going on in Sunshine with the water and stuff, but like, it's still bring a thing to A, do the thing, collect X. You know what I mean? It's not this. It's not this weird little sandbox thing kind of thing.
Yeah, it's kind of what I was talking about last week when we talked more about Steam Next Fest demos, and I said Ruffy in the Riverside sort of like caught my attention more than Astrobot, because I feel like Astrobot, for as like amazing the game feel is like amazing and the presentation is amazing, I felt like there was no moment where my mind was totally blown. It felt like a very like an unbelievably polished version of a lot of things that I had sort of felt or seen before in many ways. And Ruffy was like a little less spectacle and a little more like, holy shit, I've never been able to turn a waterfall into vines and then climb them up. I've never turned like a whole ocean into quicksand before in a video game.
I did play that as well last week and really liked it.
It's very charming.
The full version, it was cool.
Same, yeah. I didn't want to play the whole demo because I was like, I'm sold already, which is the feeling of any good demo. But yeah, anyway, I just thought Pikmin was worth bringing up because it just creates this feeling of miniature world that is like, there's something very special about games that feel toy-like. About games that Will Wright talks a lot about how Will Wright's background is before he made games was that he was really into models, and that the reason that games caught his attention is that one day he realized, I can make models in a computer that then do stuff, like the tank model. You make the tank and you paint it and put it together on the shelf and it just sits there. But when you make a tank model and put it into like systemic modeling in a video game, the tank does things. It can act on its own and it can surprise you and stuff. And I guess I was just kind of shocked how much Pikmin is just like this little interactable ant farm. It feels like I'm leaning down in the garden, like looking this close, but with game mechanics and imbued in there. And it just, I guess the reason I brought up the Hakoniwa thing is it's bizarre how this feeling is, it's like a holistic thing. It emerges out of like aesthetic qualities, out of game design qualities, out of like ambiance, out of sound, out of music, out of presentation, out of narrative. There is this sort of like unspeakable center of the mandala between all those things that they're all in support of, and that thing at the center is this feeling of a miniature world that has like some sort of existence beyond just being the place that the game takes place.
Would that concept apply to? Because I'm trying to think of like what games I think did the Pikmin thing, and there's not many of them, like games that are platformers or games that are puzzle, like games like this that are, you know, more systemic or whatever. Would the Katamari games be in that as well? Or
I could see
it's a different scale, I guess, is the problem, but it's still like you feel like you're sort of like you're like a god leaning into this little world a little bit, you know, like there are people going about their day and doing all their shit, you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, totally.
I think you roll them up into a ball.
Yeah, they all survive though. They all seem very happy to be rolled up largely. Yeah, I think Katamari is a great example. I think Zelda 1 is kind of the example that is like the peak example of Hakone wa, especially because it's like these little sort of diorama individual box levels that you're tiles that you're moving between, and you move into one and see the little orcs running around, and it's kind of like it has that ant farm feeling to it. But yeah, it's also it is like beyond just the presentation. It's this feeling of peering into a little world that has sort of like exists on its own that you're interfacing with. And yeah, I think Katamari does that in very clever ways where it's you just see like the little car driving around and it's so clearly on sort of like a predetermined path where it just drives around the block endlessly. Yeah. But for some reason it just like it tricks your brain into thinking like, I got that guy. Now he's like stuck in the Katamari. He can't drive around the block anymore.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I never thought about it. Sometimes we have such established genres that we don't think about some of the other ones, or ones that ended, or ones that start. There's in the Dwarf Fortress documentary that there's a whole bit where we talk about tactical RPGs, which is this like subgenre which kind of ended a bit, where it was these strategic simulations incorporated. SSI made a bunch of these. They were basically like sim games for like baseball and you know, World War II, lots of like war things and stuff like that. But they were games, but they were like, you know, you're basically simulating a baseball game or whatever, or a war or whatever. And then they started to make fantasy ones where, you know, like they got the Dungeons and Dragons license basically, and then started making a bunch of these simulation games, but like in a fantasy context. And then Dwarf Fortress is kind of a couple of separations from that, because there was a couple of people who tried to do that as well. And it's like we talk about Baldur's Gate and we talk about Oblivion, and there are all these like versions of RPG, especially fantasy RPG, that exist today. But the idea of having one that's just like super simmy, where like you cast a spell and it like knocks off an elf's like leg, and then, you know, like that shit doesn't exist because we had this big rush to 3D, and that's basically where Dwarf Fortress is that it's like you can do that type of simulation in a role-playing game, but you cannot take on the art load. Like that's the cost of doing this. The monkey paw curls, right? And you don't get art. It's ASCII now. But it was fun to like talk about that in the doc, because we don't talk about that subgenre. It kind of came and went. It emerged from this very particular moment, and then it kind of stopped because these much sexier things like Ultima Underworld were made, you know, or whatever, or Baldur's Gate 1, or, you know, even things like Fallout, you know what I mean? Like it just, that's what people wanted, and these kind of stopped. And yeah, it's funny to, like, Pikmin is a good example of that as well. And the thing you're talking about where, yeah, we have established rules about what genres are and what types of games there are. And it kind of works against us probably more than for us at this stage.
Yeah, totally. It's like it's the presentation of genre is very much like a marketing thing, because it is hard to get someone who just got home from, you know, an 8-hour shift to try a totally new type of experience, because there's more resistance to it. Whereas, you know, you're like, oh, I've played a first-person shooter. I could play a first-person shooter that's like goblins instead of demons or something. Also, the simulation thing you bring up is so relevant to the documentary that I'm editing yet, which we have not announced yet. But in the beginning, to spoil a little bit of this doc, I asked this developer about MUDs, which are multi-user dungeons. They're these text-based multiplayer spaces that date back to the late 70s.
Very ASCII as well, a lot of the time.
Most of them they have graphical MUDs later on, but the early ones are purely text. But imagine it's like 1981 or whatever, and you're in like a university computer lab, one of the few places you'd have access to a computer that's hooked up to the early internet, and you go onto this Zork looking ass game, and you're like, it's like you enter the dungeon, you see a kobold dead on the floor, that it's like Jeff enters the room. You're like, well, who the fuck is Jeff?
Yeah, right.
Like there's just like a guy there. Like that must have been so shocking. But one of the interesting things this developer I interviewed talked about is how Mud 2, one of the original Muds by I think it was Bartle and Trubshaw, which are fantastically Tolkien-esque names.
By Bartle and Trubshaw.
That sounds like I'm making up shit, like Noclip documentaries.
It sounds like some shit from Rise of the Golden Idol, let me tell you.
It does. Would not have happened long after that game takes place. But one of the interesting things this developer brought up is that in Mud 2, one of the earliest sort of RPG experiences you could play, because it's so abstracted, because it is text, it could do things that we'd never dream of games doing now for various reasons, like you said. And the example the dev I interviewed gave was in Mud 2, if you had a glass of milk and you stepped into a river, the milk would wash away because you would be immersed in water. And it's like, it's not that we couldn't simulate that, it's that priorities have shifted because like as soon as the art load comes in and there's a graphical representation of these things, it's like, is it worth it to fucking, do we need to have the milk diluted into the river water? Then it's like, this water is like, I mean, that feels like Dwarf Fortress at that point where it's like the water is 0.1% milk now.
And what you're talking about is basically the progenitor to the SSI stuff. Is like is NetHack and mods and all that sort of stuff. And yeah, it's crazy to think like there were people in the 70s going like, man, games are going to be able to fucking simulate everything, because they kind of were like, and we went backwards. Like
we were like, the best thing we could simulate now is gambling. That's the closest we're getting.
Exactly, yeah. It's and that's why like but it's a totally different way of playing games. You have to like teach your brain to do it, because like how do you, I talked to Tarn about this and it doesn't come up until the second episode I think, but like how do you, if he says like if the player doesn't notice something happened, it didn't happen. So like how do you tell people that the milk flowed away, you know? Like it's so hard to get graphically, like it's almost impossible to do it. And I really think like that's the thing that like gets people excited. Like when you see in Red Dead Redemption 2, you get out of a river and his pants are wet. You know what I mean? And then when you...
The horse's balls shrank in the cold.
Did they really? Oh my God. Or Kingdom Come, where I'm like intimidating somebody because I'm covered in blood and because I'm covered in mud, that it's giving me better dice rolls on my intimidation stats. Like, or if you wear something flamboyant in a poor part of that world, you have a stat for, I forget what it's called, but there's a stat for basically like how much you stand out is like a stat in that game. And it's like, that stuff is so compelling and interesting. I wonder if all these like this ImSim revolution that's happening and all this stuff is making people pull it in the same way that like, remember when RPG mechanics sort of went in every shooter, like back in 2006 or whatever, like
every game period. Yeah,
totally. Right. I wonder if something as similar is happening with systemic shit, because you don't have to have games that look that good once you do that shit, like as well. Like people are fine if you pull that stuff back.
I feel like we've been on that road for like a decade now, or even more than that, right? Breath of the Wild, probably the biggest example of like, just putting more and more little opportunities for weird things to happen. Baldur's Gate, you can climb on the boxes and jump over stuff, right? There's all these different new systems. Immersive sim is when you don't enter a building from the front door, basically. But like, or Indiana Jones. That game has weird ImSim-y kind of moments, especially with the whip and the way that interacts with the world, both as a tool and also as a gameplay mechanic. Like we're getting closer and closer to games not being such rigid, like press F to pay respects sort of things, or even like the what was I talking about, moves of the diamond hand, like that has similar stuff where you can pickpocket, but if the dice rolls work out. And I think Baldur's Gate especially is really giving, and Disco Elysium to an extent, is giving people the tools and understanding, again to Jeremy's point of like not needing to learn tabletop RPG mechanics. They already sort of have that because the most popular games did them. So now we could be like, now there's just dice rolls for a little bit, why not? And you can do more interesting things with that. I'm so excited to see what the next 5 or 6 years of developers or publishers going like, hey, what if we just had, wisdom stat that you had to roll for in this encounter? Why not? Screw it. Let's make that one of the game mechanics. Let's go. Gaming's back, baby.
But it is also funny how, though, a game like Dwarf Fortress, for instance, didn't have graphics, but the number one thing that people did to mod it for the 16 years it was in beta was to get tile sets and use DF hack to make that game. And then obviously when it came out on Steam, that was the big reason people wanted to play it, was that they did it. So it's, and Baldur's Gate 3 is probably the apex of that, right? Where you're getting this, like, I mean, it's not that type of simulation, but it's enough emergent stuff going on there and enough control, but wrapped in this very beautiful, well realized world with voice acting. Like, that's kind of like, that's the apex really of this sort of stuff. And in a way it's like it's kind of like, duh, like fucking Mass Effect. Like, Mass Effect wasn't popular because of the shooting, like you fucking dum-dums. Like, we all knew this, I guess, but it's just, I guess it's really hard to make those games. They're super expensive.
And everyone who does, like, their studio doesn't last particularly long. Rest in peace.
Yeah. And the writing needs to be really good, and it's you can't.
There's like a slider between fidelity and reactivity, where the more reactivity, the fidelity is more expensive because there's more iterations and more animations and stuff. And so it is interesting in a way. Like, Dwarf Fortress, like you said, is a great example of people need a little bit of fidelity. Like, there definitely was a point where it's like, MUDs became graphical, and all of a sudden you can see your little dude in the dungeon, and it's like, I don't see a lot of people advocating for the return to purely text-based games, because there was like I mean, I'm someone who's like, I don't think games need to look as good as they do. I think it's ridiculous, and it makes games expensive. It's clearly like one of the things that's fueling
makes
a lot of
playing games expensive too.
Yeah, 100%.
You have to buy new graphics cards all the time,
which like is kind of, I mean, this is fucking tinfoil hat time, but like, it's fucking driving hardware sales by, it's not only driving hardware sales by making fidelity go up, but it's also like, it's an easy sales pitch to be like, we're pushing more polygons.
The NVIDIA cabal is like, make your games run like shit, guys. We got to AI generate some frames.
Yeah, exactly. We got a crypto farm off all these cards. No, but like, yeah, it is interesting how I think we are now realizing that reactivity and emergence are more sort of like core and fundamental to what makes games as a medium special than fidelity. And I mean, this is something that cinema could have told you fucking 100 years ago, because film cameras looked amazing. Like, early digital cameras looked like dog shit compared to like, go watch any film, the movie.
Go watch
shot
28
on film.
Days Later.
Yeah, for sure. Or
even like, to your point, like video games now, even the ones that are popular with children, Fortnite, right? Those kinds of games, they build themselves on the ability for people to tell stories about a funny, stupid thing that they did that sounds particular. Among Us, like every and that works because it's multiplayer, but even single player stuff like Baldur's Gate 3 is another great example where people are like, oh, I did this thing and I shot this guy and then this happened in the story thing and then I fucked the bear. Like, that's the kind of stuff people want out of video games, is these weird stories where everyone sits around and they tell these stories like, oh, I did this thing. I threw a fireball down the thing and I hit an explosion and then all the kobolds died, or like whatever. Stuff like that. Like, Dwarf Fortress is the example of that. But every great game, I feel like every year is not, it's not, hey, did everyone reach that exact same cutscene? Let's all talk about the cutscene. It's always like, hey, this weird goofy thing happened, or like
sometimes it is, but those are the ones that, like, we talk about. We've talked about it a bunch of times about games like The Last of Us, which is the opposite end of the spectrum in a way. Although actually,
I love story games.
I think The Order 1886 is actually the opposite end of this. Like, there is a lot of like dynamic stuff in
Rise, Son of Rome
combat. Yeah, exactly. So it does get less systemic. Than
there are times like that, and I love me a good story game. God of War Ragnarok. I cry when Kratos says the thing. But like Frank's point about the clip from Monster Hunter Wilds, where you're cooking food and then a monster blows fire on you, shit like that. That's what makes me excited about video games. I'm like, yes, baby,
and
we can do it.
That's an example of exactly what you're talking about. We've come full circle, where that Monster Hunter, what it's added in, it seems to be, is a lot of that systemic stuff, and it's cost them a bit because they already had the graphics, or they already had this expectation of how it looks, and now they have to add in all this.
Now they got to do it in the Street Fighter 6 engine. Oh no.
Exactly.
Yeah. I guess the conclusion we've come to here is that like the creation of a game world is this thing that is fundamental to what is special about games, because it allows for emergence and reactivity, and because, to Jesse's point, it's like, when you're on the playground talking about the new game that you and all your friends are playing, the stories you tell aren't I mean, you might be like, wow, that cutscene was so powerful or whatever, and have that shared experience. But the real story people tell is like, oh man, I did this thing, and like, I can't believe this is like this can happen in this game. And it's so, yeah, like game worlds, like the emphasis on worlds are like, they have that Hakoniwa thing, that feeling of like a miniature world that is interactable, that you can poke and prod, and it will do different things based on how you interact with it. It's not a movie where it unfolds linearly. It's a movie where you're on screen and you're like, what if during the big romance scene I like push this guy off a cliff?
GTA 6. They're gonna do it. Finally.
All right. That was a lot of video game chat. Let's we pushed these emails back last week, Frank. Let's dive into them. Let's get it going. What we got here?
Yeah, we have a lot. And then if people do want to send us emails, write to us, podcast@noclip.video, or in our podcast channel on Discord. The first one, we saved this for Danny like weeks ago. This was from Steven. Hey, crew, been really interested with Danny's discussions over the past 2 weeks regarding his experience of Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. To the point where I decided to try it, the first one, and 10 hours in, I am thoroughly invested. Thank you, Danny. Which leads me into a question. RPGs have historically been a very popular genre in video games, but in the past, say, 10 years, there have been many high-profile RPGs released that haven't been met with high regards by players. What do you think the AAA studios can learn from Kingdom Come Deliverance 1 and 2 for their future games?
Man, the thing that stands out to me about Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 is the fact that you are just a normal dude. Like almost all, there's no magic in this world, first of all, right? And then you're looking at the power fantasy. So you're like, okay, how do you get this person into that they're like the best in the world, or they're anything like that? And like the thing that I love about this game is that, and it seems like such a silly way to sort of reverse expectations or whatever, is that you are once again in Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 just like a normal punter, and it's so refreshing. And it means that, like, because if you're the most powerful person in the world, then you need to make the most powerful boss for you. Like, it's not like you can walk over everything. They still need to, like, oh, now you have to kill like 80 guys, right? Like it's like the Dynasty Warriors problem, or like, you have to kill like this massive boss, so you have to kill the king. Like all it does is shift all the fucking stakes just like a couple of layers higher, right? Whereas what I really like about Kingdom Come is that like the quests themselves, like I feel like there is an economy of design in just downscoping that, because like, what am I doing? I'm getting in sword fights with like one or two people, and they're difficult, or I'm stealing a loot from a guy's house. There's not this like huge quest to do all this stuff. Like, it's the stuff that's happening is like, in terms of like the amount of people on screen or the animations or the required dialogue to do it. Like, I'm just talking to people. Like, one of the biggest things that happens in the first opening hours of Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 is a wedding scene. And it's a wedding, and I've done weddings in other games. I mean, I think the opening of Blood and Wine has a big thing in it, and The Witcher 3 actually, has a, I think it's a wedding or a ball or something, right? The amount of, that wedding is like in this gorgeous castle with like 100 NPCs. The lighting's amazing. All this, the Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 one is like a medieval wedding. So there's like 40 people. They're all just getting drunk and playing like fucking throwing dice. Like it's scaled down. It's just smaller. And I don't know if, like, obviously this game does a lot, and it's got a lot of writing, and it's got a lot of systems. But they've just been smart. Like, it doesn't have all the physics. Actually, it does have a lot of the physicsy stuff of games like Starfield and things like that. I guess it's just like, it doesn't, it's not the scale. The world isn't as big as Starfield, right? It's not. It's a small thing, but because the scale of the game has been shrunk down to this very human level, everything as a result seems like 30% less expensive, if that makes sense. So I'm wondering from like a purely, this is like almost answering the question with like a production answer. Like, I wonder if, I'd love to ask them about this. Like, I wonder if that's one of the weird cheat codes of this game, is that because it's not never, massive battle after massive battle, it's just these small moments, but they're written well, and your character seems appropriately challenged. Like I would be in that situation, that it feels like it works. Like Disco Elysium is kind of similar in that way. I think if you did Disco Elysium and you were like a god, it wouldn't make that much of a difference to the way you would make that world, maybe, you know, because you'd largely be doing the same stuff. But you're dealing with just like interpersonal issues, like the type of things that you deal with on your day-to-day life. I think in like a first-person open world RPG, actually that gets you a lot. That's what I'm kind of learning from Kingdom Come. So yeah, I don't know if that's just fucking the next Mass Effect doesn't need to be about like saving the universe. You know what I mean? Like, and I'm not even joking. Like, I'm like
100% agree.
It can be. Imagine if it was about saving a colony. You know what I mean? On a planet.
Yeah.
Like you could probably make it a lot. You know, I do wonder if this is just like this thing that would actually shave off enough in enough departments where you would actually be able to save enough budget and make a game that is as interesting. Because like there are moments in Kingdom Come Deliverance that are as shocking, as cool, as humiliating as any game I've ever played that had me save the universe or whatever. Like get the princess, whatever.
I wonder how much of that is cultural too, because like I'm always thinking about Marvel Cinematic Universe stuff with the snap of like, why is there no story about the middle point? Why is there no story about how you deal with that? The way culture shifts. Watch The Leftovers. But like, I haven't. There's not enough shit like that. So I wonder if maybe culturally we're just like having this shift in video games and movies and storytelling in general, where it's like, I want a story about regular people dealing with some normal shit once in a while. Nobody like that new Dungeons and Dragons movie, right? It's not about defeating Shelob and like freeing the universe. It's just four people doing a normal thing together.
And it's brilliant.
Yeah, it's so much fun.
Because like 20 minutes of the movie is based on how are we going to get into this carriage?
Yeah.
It's not like how do we blow up the fucking moon, or you know what I mean? Like it's or like defeat the massive dragon. It's like how do we get past these guards, right? And we do this the fucking
the glitch bit. Yeah,
the funniest scene I think I've seen in movies in 20 years. I was crying laughing. That movie is
great,
but that's a fucking brilliant example, and that is a game that does a lot of. I mean, that's a movie in a setting that is actually doing a lot, but. You're right. Within the context of what is expected there, it's so refined. I wonder, production-wise, it actually cost them less because they were, again, you know, not... Yeah. And then you look at games like Marvel's Avengers or something, and you're like, the opening level, they're having a fucking, you know, fight on the Golden Gate Bridge, and there's fucking explosion, Hulk is there, and then this and that. And you're like... And I find all that shit exhausting.
Goes off, and you're like,
we've all been playing games for a long time, so maybe that's part of it. But like, none of that fucking stuff has any levity. You know what I mean? It just feels like comic book fakes. I'm not just singling out that game, but like even other games. Like I often hate when games do that thing where it's the big bad, and you know.
But is that part of what made the first Spider-Man from Insomniac so much fun? Is that you're not fighting, you're fighting like a scientist. It sucks. Spider-Man's great because everyone's so low level, and like half of the game is you just beating up like dorks on the street who are trying to steal a car. Like that's most of the game.
Ask people about their favorite mission in Red Dead Redemption 2, and it's always like some weird little thing that they saw.
Yep.
It's never like the big shootout.
Cross or whatever,
Yeah. It's always these like
Although
small...
that big
like
shootout is good.
Yeah, or GTA Online.
Yeah.
Like that is an entire thing that is based on social engagement and role-playing being a regular person. You know what I mean? And actually, GTA 5 probably... At least GTA 5, especially its early levels, are a lot of like silly things like trying to repo cars or, you know. But yeah, it's weird how... Yeah, so I don't know. I think that's the thing that stuck out to me is just... There might be it might be a win-win to just fucking scope down the scale of these things. It might work on every level is where I'm feeling. Like I am now more interested in Kingdom Come Deliverance 3 than I am in Elder Scrolls 6. Like that's where I am at the moment. Yeah. Right. So like, and I'm a, you know, we're all big fans of those games, but like,
speak for yourself.
There's something about
I'm just joking. I love those games.
I will. They're not getting it in Canada anyway.
That's right. Yeah, it's going to cost $400.
There's this thing in old movie credits where instead of calling the screenwriter or writer or written by or story by, it'll say scenario by. And
yes.
I always think of that in terms of like storytelling in general. And I think it's so super relevant to this because like if you look at old, say like Billy Wilder is one of the greatest screenwriters of all time. A lot of his greatest stories are these really sort of like small scale, humble, like low stakes in terms of the world state, but high stakes to the characters. Like The Apartment is just a guy who's in love with a girl who he works with.
Oh, I'm gonna go watch that at a theater on the weekend. By the way.
Really?
Yes, they're showing it. Oh, I can't wait.
One of my 3 favorite movies of all time. It's one of the greatest movies ever written. But yeah, it's just about a guy who lets his bosses cheat on their wives at his apartment, and it's like it's so silly and so low stakes. There's no world-ending consequences. But the reason I think the term scenario by is so relevant is because these like. Any scenario can be like ratcheted and crafted and polished into being something that feels high stakes and tells a good story. A story isn't something where like, and if you don't do this, the entire world will crumble. It can be something very small scale. It's just about like telling those humbler stories in a way that feels meaningful to the player or to the characters. And from an immersed perspective, it should matter to you. So yeah, it's like a falsehood that you need to have this thing where it's the world will end if you don't do it. It could just be that like your character will get their heart broken.
Yeah, right. Yeah, absolutely. Like, just Clerks. I'm just thinking of, like,
yeah.
that's the lowest stakes movie I can even think of. You know what I mean? Like fucking Mallrats. I don't know. Yeah, great question, Stephen. We'll see what happens.
And then Christian had a question. With the release of Developing Hell on Blu-ray and what sounds like the initial run sold out, is Noclip considering future on-disc releases?
We're gonna continue putting Developing Hell out for sure. That season there should be more. There is more. It's not. We sold through our first run of it, which is fantastic. It means it's popular and that means there's going to be more available, which is great, and it's also available in the EU Fangamer site if you've been holding out. So yeah, it will continue to sell that, and there'll be like I'm sure sales down the line and stuff like that. We'll be promoting it. Honestly, it took like so much fucking work to get that, and I can't even say I was the one who did most of it to get it done. I mean, to get it filmed. First of all, Jeremy was the series wouldn't have happened without him because I was living out in fucking Maryland at the time we said yes to that. So obviously it was a big production for a number of years, but then the actual process of getting it on a Blu-ray, like John Paul at Supergiant was doing so much work to try and get us the right. Like it's hard to find people to do that stuff. And to do it well, and there was a number of vendors that we couldn't get it. Like really, I'd like rendered multiple versions of these things. They're trying to squeeze it because they compress it to get it on the discs, and some people had done them really bad. And there was like, I can't tell you, like it was hell. I can't, no pun intended. I would get like JP would send me like a new version of the Blu-ray from some company, and I would have to sit there and watch the entire series one day to make sure that there was no errors in the videos. And like you'd be watching it on episode 3, fucking Greg would get hung up for like 10 seconds and then it would continue. And I'm like, well, we can't sell that. I think the final version, we found 3 very small glitches that happened that like nothing gets hung up, but like there's a bit of artifacting on it for a second or something like that, which was pretty brilliant for where it was at the start. So yeah, it's so much work to do it, and also we have such a good relationship with those guys. Like I take our editorial independence, like that is if people want to pay us to make Half-Life documentaries, sure, but like anything that's on Noclip, we are completely in control of, and we turn down projects. We had that project in January we were going to do, and I turned it down because I didn't necessarily feel good about how we were talking to those folks about it. And it's hard to then go to a point where you're going to sell something. You need to be really, really aligned with them. So I don't think so. I've talked to some people about doing like little anthologies or something where we stick a bunch, like imagine if we had like all, the Doom ones and some other, like a first person or an immersive sim collection or something like that. But you're getting into so much legal paperwork and stuff that takes time. Like it takes time away from me editing is the problem. And then is really worth it. So I don't think so. I think what's more likely is that we will do a book at some stage. And the 10th anniversary of Noclip's coming up, you know, in about 18 months time. So that's kind of something I'd like to do. And we've talked to people. There are, you know, the people out there making video game books, and most of them I've talked to over the past few years about doing something. But I'd really want to make something that felt like, you know, sort of wrapped up 10 years of our work and added stuff. And I even did, we did a thing with Carolyn Pettit, who myself and Jeremy worked with in at GameSpot. She lives out in the East Coast now in New York, and she's a fantastic writer. Was a reviewer at GameSpot for years, and I think it was the Arcane project. I basically hired her to do a spec like chapter, like watch our documentaries, here's like the extended cuts of the interviews, and just do a written version of this. Like, what does that look like? And she wrote this really great piece, you know, a few thousand words that was basically a summary of the whole thing. That could be a version that we could do in a book or something. And we ended up not pursuing it just because there was too much stuff going on. And but it was always like something I wanted to go back to. Like, maybe that's how we tackle it. We do like a book version, you know, or we tell the stories in a different way instead of just, you know, regurgitating the docs, because the docs exist and they'll always be up there, hopefully, you know. And so yeah, maybe another way of doing it. And I'm not a writer. I consider myself a terrible writer. Whenever I do a blog post, people are always like, "Oh, you should do more of these." So maybe I'm not as terrible, but I'm definitely nowhere near good enough to be writing fucking books. So it's not me to do it is sort of the other problem. So, or maybe that's a blessing. So, because everyone knows on this team that everything gets gummed up because I've got too much shit on my plate. So writing a book is probably not a very good idea. But yeah, I would say probably not more Blu-rays. If we ever, I'd say the most likely thing is if we ever do a doc on Hades 2, that would, there's a lot of the work has been done to do the legal stuff. So that would be the most likely thing I could see. But yeah, but also we have talked to streaming people, and I'm currently in the process of talking to a major streaming platform about doing a series, and so there are other ways that this stuff might appear, or there might be different versions that might appear in the future. But yeah, the stuff hitting YouTube, probably not. Is there no email?
Yes. This is from Thomas. I work in secondary education, and whenever I hear a student talk about gaming, I always ask what they play. I've noticed that more often than not, the answer is a singular game. It's either Fortnite, Minecraft, or Roblox. I think this is so sad. When we were kids, the world was so much smaller, but we still seem to stumble on more games through word of mouth or curiosity. I remember playing Devil May Cry purely on the cover art and getting into Resident Evil because of the playground chatter. I think it's sad that in a much wider world we have access to now, these kids are so single-minded. Thoughts on this? Is variety gaming just for us old men?
I mean, Roblox, Minecraft, and Fortnite are broad things to say for what I think are a lot of smaller kinds of games anyway. Like, kids who are playing Minecraft are playing Minecraft mods. There are worlds in Minecraft that have their own games in them. Roblox itself is a platform for a bunch of different random games. And Fortnite has its own platform as well. It's got the Lego version, there's racing, and then there's user-made content as well. So those players are still playing a lot of different experiences. They're just not doing them outside of the context of those games. That's what those studios want, is they want people to spend as much time as possible in their games. That's what everyone wants if you're making a live service thing that profits off of player counts and stuff. I think for variety gaming, it kind of just comes down to if you have the platforms and if you have the resources to know what's good and what's new, right? And kids don't really, like, a lot of people that we follow, I'm assuming the rest of the crew is in the same spot, that we follow for games industry news or following with games are people who are roughly our age or a little bit older. For younger people, the YouTubers they're watching are just playing Roblox. They're just playing Minecraft, right? They're not like, oh, hey guys, this episode we're going to be checking out Animal Well. Like, they're not doing that, right? So I think that's part of it too, is these kids don't have the same tools because a lot of the people who they would be watching or listening to are so focused on a very specific kind of content that they're not going to escape out of that realm unless they have their own personal interests. And even if they do want to try something new, the games that they're already playing have new experiences in them, or that's by design with Roblox. So I don't know. I feel like we'll see it happen, but the kids are going to have to stick with gaming for a lot longer. And we'll have to see a resurgence of user created curation. And will that ever happen? Who knows? It doesn't look like it's worth the money. So
it's a weird paradox as well, because I feel like a lot of the content creators you're talking about that are sort of slated towards the younger audience, I feel like they do play a lot, like a surprising amount of those huge content creators will play like unbelievably niche horror games and things like that. And those games do go on to sell way better because of that exposure. But I do feel like, well, for sure. Yeah, that's a good point. There's been a drop off. But I guess that's what I was about to say is that like, I feel like some people get their fix on that thing by watching someone else play it. And so, I mean, it's, the content creators cannibalizing other content creators is kind of the same thing where it's like a big streamer will watch a YouTube video that's like a video essay that took 2 months of work. And then how many
streamers have more views on their reaction video to a Noclip documentary than the Noclip documentary has? Sorry, Danny.
I don't mind as long as they're not dipshits. I watched some of the
unfortunately.
Asmongold watching the Half-Life one. And I was like, Jesus Christ, this guy doesn't have a fucking clue what he's talking about when it comes to games.
Yeah, it is a weird thing where the thing that is like the commodity that a lot of people are consuming is the presence of another person consuming the thing, whether it's a piece of content or a game or whatever. So I think it's an odd paradox where how do you motivate people to, in their own time when they sit down to play a game, to fire up these weird and more novel things. I think it's just like, I don't know, it's a really hard thing to inspire other people to do. I feel the same thing about trying to like get friends interested in different filmmakers that I like, or like when I first started watching Ozu movies, I wouldn't shut the fuck up about it because I wanted other people to have that experience where they were like, oh, aren't those like boring movies about like drinking tea in the garden? And then you sit down and watch it and you're like, oh my God, like this fucking movie about watching tea in the garden is like killing me. But it's a difficult thing to like move people to a point where they feel like, yeah, I am self-motivated to check this out. It is my decision. I'm legitimately curious about it, and then remain open enough to experience it and have a good experience. So it's just hard to get people.
And not everyone has a Jeremy. Not everyone's got someone like you that you could say, hey, watch an Ozu movie. That's a legitimate thing. Because my wife didn't really watch a lot of like art house artsy movies. She liked her She's the Man. She knew what she liked, and she would admit, like, I'm not watching that stuff. That's not for me. Oscar movies, why would I ever watch that? They all look boring. But I was like, give it a shot, try this. I think you might be interested in this. And eventually you can walk them to that point, right? But if you don't have anyone in your life that can say, these are good movies, these are good books, or if you can't find anyone on the internet, like a lot of us did at the beginnings of games journalism or the beginnings of whatever content creation, it was a lot easier to find smaller niche people who were covering these kinds of things. Now it's like, where's the money in that? How do you discover that? And if you don't have someone in your life who's like, go play these 8 terrible games on Steam that cost $5, that'll change your life. We all need a Jeremy Jane in our life. Perhaps a digital Jeremy Jane I can carry on my phone named ChatGPT. What do you think?
That's very generous of you.
Oh my God, yeah.
I'm sure the friends that I text constantly to fucking, have you checked out this movie yet? They're like, yeah, they could use a little less Jeremy in their pocket probably, but that's very nice of you.
I think there's also like that when we were growing up, there was this like we exist now where there's sort of monoculture, and that like there is this behemoth of culture that exists, and then there are these like the niches are deeper than ever, and that's cool. Like Noclip can't exist 20 years ago, I feel like, right? You need the internet to be in the way it is and culture to be the way it is, where the sickos, all of us video game documentary preservation people, will find ourselves. We're weird little sickos, right? Whereas when we were growing up, there wasn't the monoculture, but there was like different strands of culture that you were in. So you had like, music was the obvious place where this happened. Where you people who were in Ireland, people who were into dance music, or people who were into metal, or people who were into punk rock, or, and then with that, you got lots of other things that pulled in, like skateboarding or clothes or blah, blah, blah. And some of that stuff still exists, but it was so much more bifurcated before, I feel like, or divided up in a way. And games were similar, where like, now there are 1 billion games hitting Steam every month, right? And then there are like these big behemoth games. So you have the sort of monocultures now, the Fortnite, Minecraft, and all that sort of shit. And then there's like the niche stuff is super niche. Whereas before, you either owned a PlayStation or a Nintendo or an Xbox or whatever it was. And then your friends, your little social group, whether it be at school or work or whatever, we were all doing our own discovery so we could all go back to the hub group and talk about it. Have you played this? Did you see this yet? There was like this excitement in going out and finding stuff because you knew that like the thing you were going to tell them about was actually within reach to them because it was like, oh, it was for their system or it was this type of game, and you know, there weren't as many crazy genres as there are sort of now. And I feel like now it's harder to be that person. Like you kind of have to be the outsider who's really willing to put themselves on the line and like suggest something, like suggest jazz to somebody who doesn't listen to jazz. Whereas before, I feel like the buckets were smaller. They were big enough that there was some exploration, but they weren't so big that it was crazy. So I think people get scared off. I think Fortnite feels comfortable, and like you said, there's enough shit going on in those worlds, and then anything outside of that is such a departure now from, whereas before it was like the difference between like Tomb Raider and Nightmare Creatures wasn't that big. You know, it was close enough where you could kind of make that leap or somebody could suggest it to you. And then I think the other part of it is piracy. I think piracy...
I was just going to say, we don't steal enough shit anymore.
It used to be a free way. Piracy and demos. Next Fest is doing this again, but like demo discs on you know, official PlayStation Magazine or whatever it was, you know, renting games maybe, but definitely pirating games and passing games around was a legitimate form of people being exposed to shit that they weren't going to buy because kids can't buy this shit. And a lot of kids can't buy games. They can play Fortnite for free.
The only reason we knew about Soulja Boy was because of LimeWire, right? Like how many careers were launched off the back of that? Braid is so popular, really, if you think about it, because of LimeWire.
That's the way I discovered Aphex Twin as a kid was because I've mentioned this on the podcast. I saw the Rubber Johnny music video and it was uploaded on like fucking, you know, Kazaa or something as like real alien leaked footage for Area 51. And I was like, what the fuck is this? And then, you know, I was like, this music is pretty banging though.
Yeah, like all the Amiga games used to copy off our friends and all the PC games you'd download. And it's just not, there's a couple of different things that used to exist that don't exist anymore. And I think these kids just aren't getting exposed to that stuff. Like, I don't think it's their problem. I think we had the good internet. They're all growing up with the shit internet. Like, yeah. I really feel like very lucky to have grown up when I grew. I mean, you know, there are other challenges that face our generation for sure, but like, in terms of the internet, at least in terms of video games, like, it was a good time when we were in our teenagers years and 20s, and I do think it's harder now to get into this stuff. And I also think that's why people don't trust games journalism and don't trust this and that, because it had a fucking use when we were kids. Had a
you know why they don't trust games journalism.
I mean, if there was a use that they needed, they would stand up for it. Like there's no. I mean, it largely has lost its utility. Like it has. Like unless you're super into it or you like reading video, you know, essays and stuff like that. I was about to say, do you like reading video essays, which sounds lovely.
Well,
but whereas in the past, those were they were the oracles. They were there coming down off the mountain to tell you what games were coming out.
Like Moses with the top 10 commandments.
Yeah, top 10 Steam next. It's Jesse with the Next Fest demos.
Exactly. Yeah. And they're not anymore, right? No. It's not their fault. It's the, you know, it's not our fault. It's the way the world changed. But yeah, there's no vector for that. Now it's the YouTuber, which, like you said, has way more of a financial incentive than those people did who were just working at a publishing house.
I think there's also, like, it's such a counterintuitive thing, but the Danny, when you were gone, we talked about this like concept in architecture that I found very similar to game design, which is that there was this old story of an ancient Japanese tea garden where this guy had this beautiful view of the ocean, and he planted all these trees to block the view, so that the only time you could see the ocean is when you kneeled to wash your face in the basin to like humble you. It was like a game design thing where it's like, you know, you have to only see it in certain contexts, and I feel like there's so much good media out there, but the homogenization of access to those things, that like every song is on Spotify, every movie is on a streaming platform. I feel like the friction of finding media and experiencing media is like, you would think it would be good to have access to everything always instantly, but I feel like that frictional element, that it was like you had to seek out media. You had to like find a place to watch it. You had to find a place to rent it. You had to have a friend who like had recorded the VHS when it was live on TV, and it still had like commercials for whatever Muppets on fucking Ice or whatever in between. And I feel like that friction creates like a sense of almost like tactility. Like there's a lot of, especially like younger YouTubers talk about this and stuff, that like there are a lot of people in Gen Z and younger that are getting into like, you know, old cameras and rotary phones, and like some of it is like old like rotary phones. Some of it is just like fucking, you know, Sony hand cams from the mid 2000s.
Kids love their digital cameras. They love that shit right now.
Yeah, so I feel like there is an element of everything is totally accessible, where like the camera on your iPhone feels less special because it is not a dedicated camera. It is just an app you open, and there's no tactility, there's no button you push. It's just a fucking piece of glass you smash your finger on and then it's open or whatever. Where like having a specialized device for taking pictures, having like limited access to what you can watch, having to like almost work for it. It sounds like it would suck, but it imbues those things with a specialness that makes them more like enjoyable or something.
Totally. Like playing video games, when I can download anything and play anything on my analog pocket, I feel much less excited to play it than I do when I put a cartridge into it, right? Or when you play a console game, you put a disc in and you're like, well, that's the disc in there, now I'm playing that. You can't just switch over as quickly as you can on like Xbox or anything.
I wonder if there's an element of the word I'm struggling for a word. I'm thinking of like ceremony, but I don't mean that. I mean something else.
Yeah, like ritual or something.
Ritual, thank you. Yeah, ritual. There's an element of ritual when it comes to that stuff. Like, yeah, if you went to Blockbuster to get your video tape, you went there, you stared at all the boxes, you made a conscious decision. You bought it, you got the popcorn, you got in your car, you drove home. Like there was all this anticipation, and like the process of doing it was this bigger thing, so that when you actually sat down, you had sort of like, you'd gone through this ritual, whereas now you can instantly get into and thus out of that modality very quickly. I think you're right. Like there's no one in the world in 1990 that would have said no to, what if you could press a button on your TV and Jurassic Park would pop up and you wouldn't have to wait in Extravision in Waterford for 2 hours for someone else to bring back a Jurassic Park tape so that your family could have it. Like who would say no to that? But yeah, I think you're right. I think there's like a loss in that. And in a way, like I kind of see a lot of like, even I love work from home has been amazing, right? And I've been doing it since before COVID, but also I think like if I was in my 20s, my early 20s especially, and I was like going out into the world and suddenly everyone was staying at home, I'd go fucking mad. Like the ritual of being part of a place and going to that place and being with those people and getting lunch and like I don't need to do it, 5 days a week for shit wages, but like there's an element of ritual there that I feel like we're losing a bit by and we're getting all this other time back, which is amazing. Like and I get to choose what to do at that time, like play with my daughter or have a new hobby or fucking do whatever. But yeah, I think you're right. I think there's something missing there that is hard to then artificially add back in or something.
Yeah, that's the thing, is like, is the genie out of the bottle now, because
but you said kids are doing it. Kids are like purposefully, artificially really forcing themselves to do it slower.
But what I mean is that like it takes a real force of will to be like, because their Blockbuster's gone. Like you're not going to the movie rental place. And for now, yeah. Who knows? I mean, like, yeah, maybe there's like a world in which someone opens like a fucking brick and mortar rental place. I mean, they still exist. They're just very rare.
Do you remember I was screaming a couple of months ago about like people should make like consoles look cool again? Like what the fuck is are these people fucking stupid? Like why? like I don't like. Somebody somewhere make like the Switch. I think the Switch 2 is the thing that I got angry about, right? Because I was like, it's just another fucking one of these.
Why isn't there a handle?
Or like, could you imagine, right? Like with this generation of kids that are out there, fucking, like you said, some of the more creative of them are going out and buying fucking CD players and shit like that. But like, what if you had like some handheld device that had cartridges or something that you could plug in, that you could collect, that you could swap with your friends? Like, is this not the most fucking obvious thing in the world to sell to these kids? They've grown up in a world where none of this existed for like 15 fucking years. So like it would be the coolest thing in the world. It would be theirs for the first time. Like why is Steam Decks exist because it makes complete sense, but like I'm looking at Nintendo and going, no, we know you went into x86. We know that like all of this stuff makes sense. It's pragmatic. We're Sony and Microsoft are going to start fucking putting shit on Nintendo at this stage. I know where it's going, but like there's nobody thinks about the fucking Wii U or the Switch, or no one has any love or like I don't know what it is, or like they don't care about those things. I like the Switch too because I had good games. You think about the fucking DS, the Game Boy, any of these things, even the fucking GameCube. What a weird little thing.
Yeah,
people like cared about that. None of these kids give a shit about what they're playing their games on, and it's not because they don't care. It's because that stuff is fucking boring, and nobody cares. We don't care either. So I don't know. Like when I see kids that age who are getting into PC building, I'm like, there it is. That's the one place they can do this, where they can like have objects of affection that are these like things that give them joy, which is the fucking reason, which is such a big part of, I think, gaming. It does not. I think that's the big reason. QuakeCon tickets are going to go for sale again in the next couple of months. They just were talking about dates and stuff like that recently. When I went back to QuakeCon, I was like, gaming. This is what I was missing.
Yeah, no, totally. There's like I've recently, when I've been editing, I've been doing, I'm moving soon. So I have a bunch of wood that's been sitting on my porch that I wanted to do some woodworking with, that from a tree that fell down last year. So the wood's just been out there drying out for like a year. And I was like, suddenly I was like, I have to, I lit a fire in my ass because I have to use this wood. I can't just like put it in the fucking, I guess I could put it in a moving van, but whatever. And
that's gonna cost a lot of like weight wise.
It's like 100 pounds of fucking redwood. But it's been so nice to like, you know, I love being on the computer. Don't get me fucking wrong. I've formulated so much of my life to facilitate me being on the computer as much as I want to be, which is a lot. But like stepping away from that and like not even in like a fucking you gotta go like hiking and you gotta like breathe in the air. Just like holding a fucking I've been slabbing a piece of wood from a tree with hand tools, and it's taken so long to fucking rip this giant slab of hardwood from my yard with hand tools, and it's like, and my hands hurt and I'm like sweating. I got like I had splinters in my like hands, and then there was like wood on the floor, so I like stepped on it and had a splinter. And I swear to God, I was like,
yeah.
I was like, fuck yeah. Like I had to pull a splinter out of my toe, and I was like, I feel alive.
Yeah, I'm a human being on Earth, baby.
Yeah,
come over some morning and you can help me feed some fucking goats their milk bottles. Yeah, it's a similar thing where I'm like covered in milk and shit, and they're getting really like jumpy on me now, and I've got cuts from where they fucking stomp on me and stuff, and I'm like, yeah.
It's like it's again. It is. We are intuitively.
This is your 30s, folks. You become a farmer at some point.
This is fucking 39. This is
exactly. You're at the end of it.
I feel like there is an element of it that like, yeah, maybe we're all just getting old. But I feel like the fact that there are like popular YouTube videos from 18-year-olds who are like, I've collected Leica cameras. Look how beautiful they are. Yeah. I think it speaks to this cultural need for authenticity and for tactility. I think you see I think you've seen a lot of this, and you will see an exponential growth in this in like content creation circles, that like a lot of the things that are blowing up are people being like, yeah, I bought a house in the middle of nowhere, I'm gonna rip all the walls down and fix it. And it's not that everyone watching that is like, I want to fix up houses or I'm into carpentry or whatever. I think people are just like hungry for
I need the world to be real. Like that's all it is.
No, 100%. Because like fucking when especially like content creation has this sort of like visual and auditory language and cadence to it that becomes so fucking numbing when everyone is doing the YouTuber voice and they're all just staring at the camera, sitting in front of the camera, staring at the camera, that when YouTube serves you, you know, a 3,000 view video of like some art student in LA who's like 19 and she's just like filming traffic, you're like, this is fucking awesome, because this like, it doesn't feel like anything else.
I weirdly enough, in the past few months, I have been getting way more videos with 3,500 views popping up on my feed. So I wonder if YouTube also realizes this.
Yeah,
because I've been like, oh shit, like on my main account, I've been like, oh, that's weird that this is coming
67
up here,
views, and it's just some kid in their room playing with like Lego. All right, I'll watch it.
It's awesome though. It feels fucking real because they're not. I think it was Germa. There was a streamer who said that the YouTuber voice is the transatlantic accent of the 2020s, which is so fucking funny.
And what's the TikTok voice then? They have their own thing too. It's weird.
I don't know.
Right, 20 years from now, all of this stuff is going to date like fucking like milk in the sun.
We're fucking. It's what's the David Foster Wallace commencement speech where he said what the fuck is water? Because like we're you ask the fish like how's the water today, and they're like what the hell is water? Like we're so enmeshed in this like cultural texture that it is almost impossible to detect it, but you can easily detect when something is not it. And so I think, there's like the things that we're talking about, these things that feel like adding friction back in, it feels counterintuitive, but it is pushing back against sort of the latent ambient condition that we're all embedded in.
I mean, we're literally like the email that the last one was about the Blu-ray stuff. Like if that's not an example of like, you can watch these for free on the fucking toilet in Zanzibar. Like, you want a Blu-ray? Like, Blu-rays used to be region locked as well, right? So, like, there was, like, you want to do that? You want to put it in a machine? Or maybe you don't. Maybe you just want, you can watch it whenever, but, like, you want to have it. You know what I mean? Like, you just want to have this physical. I've certainly done that. I watched all of Psych Odyssey on YouTube. I bought the Blu-ray collection. Like, part of that is wanting to support the people for sure, but another part of it is like, I want I don't know what it is. It's definitely closer to something like ritual.
I want it. That's it.
Yeah.
We don't own anything
I want to possess
anymore.
it. Yeah.
Like you don't have anything anymore, man. Even when you buy a video game on Steam, it's like,
oh yeah.
One day they
when Half-Life
like,
Alyx came out, I was like, how do I get this? Yeah. You know what I mean? Like at least like
such a ridiculous question.
When Half-Life 2 came out, I bought I was 17 years old, some 2004. I was 18 maybe, and didn't have that much money, but I spent like any money I had on the physical version of, because it was coming out on Steam, and I was like, well, I want the box, like I want to have a thing. I want the game. I still remember the day going down to at GameStop and buying Oblivion in that Xbox 360 box. You remember that amazing box they had where it like folded out 4 fucking times and had the map and Jesus, when I fucking walked out of the shop with that thing, like, yeah, baby, that's it. Here we go. Now I'm like, I'll just download Elder Scrolls 6.
And it costs the same money and there's no cool box.
There's like a real...
Adjusting for inflation, it's a good deal.
Whatever, businessman. Shut it.
This is trite, but there's a real like Joseph Campbell hero's journey element to it, where it's like venturing into the hero's journey. You have to like descend into hell.
Yeah.
And then, you have to like return from hell with the spoils. And it's like... It's the frictional thing. Like, no one thinks they want to descend into hell, but returning from hell with the prize is like, that's the feeling you're after. And you have to pass through hell to do it. It's like when you go hiking and then you have a pizza after, and the pizza, it could be the worst fucking pizza in the world, but it tastes like the best pizza ever experientially. And it's like, I don't know. There is this level
this
to which,
is 4 guys talking about this shit because no one has gone, like when you cook a good meal and it takes a lot of hard work.
Oh, how very gendered of you, Jesse. You're saying women make food in the kitchen?
No,
we
clearly don't. Yeah. Oh, you got me. You reversed my own liberalism.
I told you about my fucking hot dog thing I made, right? You get the bread, you put the slice of ham in it.
Right.
You put the mustard, you roll it up, put it in the microwave for a minute. Hot dog.
A domestic god.
Exactly.
I think Nintendo's next console should be, here's Nintendo, if you're listening, here it is.
Okay,
it's a fucking, it looks like a 2001 iMac. It's like, they come in bright red, blue, they're kind of translucent,
Yeah,
kids love Frutiger Arrow, that's an aesthetic thing now. And the cartridges are like this fucking big, and they're full of like, they have like liquid in them. Like when you move them around, there's like bubble, like a lava lamp in there. And you tell people that the game it's like liquid technology and the liquid contains the game. It doesn't really, no one will really believe that, but you give them a dream to believe it and a cartridge to hold.
Do you know, so my daughter has this thing called the Yoto player. And it's basically I have not made this up. It is and there's another one that has little statues. I forget what it's called. I'll look it up later.
Oh yeah.
That has, and it's basically a small little music box, right? It's got a speaker. It's got 2 big chunky dials on it. And there's a smaller version too. If you're Googling, you'll see. There's a big version that sits on a charger, and a small one that's portable. And it just plays either she gets these cards. They're like little, cards like the size of a credit card cards made of plastic with an RFID in it. And when she puts one of the cards in, they're like audiobooks. And then some of them are a bit, mess with the format, but they're largely just somebody reading a story. And she puts it in the slot. There's nothing on the card. The card is just the means of having your child not look at a fucking screen all the time. Like the auto player has it displays like images for the chapter you're on, and like that image is just like a 20 by 20 pixel file. Like it's pixelated, the images. So it's almost like a little emoji is on this. Like it's not a screen, it's just like a light that shines from the back. So her way of doing this, of changing the chapters, of turning the music, is turning these dials, and then she wants to change the thing. Like the thing just downloads the fucking audio off the internet from our Wi-Fi and plays it. But as far as she's concerned, and as far as I was concerned, whenever I relate to this thing, I'm like, oh shit, I need to get that card so I can put it in and do it. And like, even that, I feel like she loves that thing. Like we lost one of them, like the thing. And she wasn't sad because she lost, like we had another, because we have one when we go on trips, like the small little portable one. When she couldn't find that one, she was sad because she had lost her music box. It was like, it wasn't like if she had a screen and it broke or something. And like even that, or like the play date, like how many people got the play date just because it was like doing something weird and new, and it was physical and looked cool. It was a cool looking piece of technology. Cut to shot of the PlayStation 3, 4, and 5. You know what I mean?
Which all look like air filters that you ordered on Amazon.
You're right. Yeah, they do, for like different parts of your fucking airplane or something. They're just, or like the Xbox, or how they name them, or just everything about it is like, I really think, I feel like a crazy person, but it feels like if any of them, and they won't because there's too big market share, if any of them did something interesting with this stuff, they would crack open a fucking vein of players, I think. But
the Playdate having a crank on it, I feel like is the most it is like a cartoon caricature parody version of what we're talking about, and people loved it because it's like, old phones, they had buttons. What if you had like bicycle pedals on the side of your Nintendo?
Peloton gaming.
And I'm not a fucking economist for these fucking companies, right? But when people complain about how expensive consoles are, like everything today is like fucking order something off of Grubhub. Everything's fucking expensive. Consoles aren't that expensive, but they are expensive when you're just asking somebody to buy another fucking PC. Like everything is a fucking PC now. Their phone is, their fucking tablet is, their PC is, their laptop from school is, the Switch is basically just running a fucking chip from a PC on it. The Xbox is the PlayStation. Like, yes, if it did something different and novel and new and looked weird and had this like other thing going on, then people would probably be okay buying it. They if people are willing. How much was the fucking Playdate? Was that thing $200 or something?
Something like that. Something like $199, right?
$199. Like that costs half as much as a fucking regular console, and you're like, look at it. It doesn't even do color. but nobody fucking. I mean, some people probably did complain, and like it is a very like fucking middle class purchase. But like, I think people, if people will buy a ticket to a concert. They'll travel
$1,000 to watch Kendrick Lamar on in July. I can't wait. But yeah, we'll do it. Yeah,
you'll buy an airplane ticket to go to your favorite artist, or a train ticket, or
go to Japan
will spend
and watch
money
wrestling.
If you inspire them, if they make something worthwhile, they will gladly spend the money on it. And it's just like how people are buying these consoles through gritted fucking teeth, because you're like, what is the one game that I'll play this for?
The Last of Us Part 1 remaster.
Yes, let's do it.
$60. You got it.
God, that's fucking bleak, dude.
Sorry.
On a console that is designed to be so undetectable by all aesthetic measures that it blends seamlessly into your entertainment set.
Which one, the Xbox or the PS5? Because PS5 looks insane.
Every single. I mean, I think the PS5 looks exactly like a fucking Lavoid air filter that I have to get fucking dust out of the air.
You can tell me that's a Dyson and it's moving moving the air around the room.
Yeah, it is. Sometimes I turn on my PlayStation 5 because I'm trying to find my space heater. You know, I'm just trying to get my feet warm.
Hey, guess what? It works.
It has just as many games as the space heater. Boom!
Oh God!
Fucking hell! All right, this has been a long podcast. You should probably go home. Go home, guys. You're drunk. Thanks for listening to the episode, everyone. Dwarf Fortress, the first episode of that doc is up on our early access. We will be putting when episode 1 hits YouTube, episode 2 will be available in early access, and the same for 3 and 4. So if you're interested at all in Dwarf Fortress, I want to watch this project. Spent a long time working on it. It's been 3 years of various filming. Frank, a lot of your filming is in episode 2. You may remember from PAX East as well. A bunch of Jeremy's filming from back in the day as well, from 2019. We did the GDC stuff as well. And yeah, I checked in with them a bunch of times up there. I'm really proud of it. I think it's one of the best things I've definitely edited in a while. So I'm excited to get it out there. And yeah,
I only watched the opening. I just wanted to say, very strong opening. That was awesome.
Oh, cheers!
Yeah, that whole thing about the Viking story and just the way that you set up telling the rest of it. Like, I can't wait to watch the rest after this very long podcast is over.
Thanks so much. And I think that's a good example of ritual. Whereas, like, I've spent a lot of time driving up and down to Polsbo. It's like a 12-hour drive, and sometimes you're just like thinking about the story, and I'm like, oh, that's how my brain interprets all of this, and then that's basically how that whole intro came together. It was just like ruminating on
that's awesome
on the whole thing, and it will all that stuff gets tied back in. It doesn't necessarily in the first episode, but it certainly does by the end. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it. We got a bunch of other stuff. Jeremy's in it. Doc will announce in due course. We've kind of got a couple of things to get out in the meantime. I'm really tired. I was up until 2 a.m. talking to even more people in Eastern Europe about a certain very good role-playing game, which is called Disco Elysium. So
subtle.
Yes. So even more people are getting added into that doc. So that's the next one I'm jumping onto once I've got all the Dwarf Fortress stuff out. All right, we'll have a patron show probably up in the next week as well. Definitely by the time the next podcast is out. So keep your eyes open for that. Patreon.com/Noclip to support our work. And we'll see you on the next one. Bye.